Chapter 906. Wei Wuyan was shocked to the point of numbness. The cultivation of the white-robed man was obviously much higher than Chu Yang's. He had been suppressing his cultivation to fight with Chu Yang. Wei Wuyan could naturally see this. So, he didn't feel strange about how the white-robed man's cultivation improved. But Chu Yang was a genuine 5th-stage sword sovereign. Just 4 hours ago, he was only a 5th-stage sword sovereign. And 4 hours later, he reached the 1st stage of sword sovereign. 4 hours. From nothing to something, from the beginning to the end, from a trickling river to a raging wave, he broke through the dam. Only 4 hours. And it was a breakthrough in battle. Wei Wuyan stood there in a daze. He felt that the martial arts principles that he had learned before were completely subverted at this moment. His teacher said, "Martial arts can't be achieved quickly. Cultivation depends on accumulation." And all of this required time. Wei Wuyan had always believed in this point. But now he knew, martial arts can be achieved quickly. Cultivation can also be achieved quickly. Looking at Chu Yang in front of him, wasn't he an obvious example? Wei Wuyan recalled that just 10 days ago, Chu Yang was still a 4th-stage sword sovereign. He felt even more dizzy. After a long while, he realized that he was moaning, "Motherfucker! What the hell is going on?" After Chu Yang broke through, his fighting spirit was high. But the white-robed man suddenly jumped out of the battle circle and ended the battle. This made him feel really unsatisfied. It was as if there was a breath in his chest that was about to explode, but he couldn't spit it out no matter what. He closed his eyes and took a few breaths to suppress the urge to fight in his heart. Only then did he realize that his meridians were full of primordial qi, as if they were about to explode. Hearing the white-robed man's words, Chu Yang knew that today's battle had come to an end. He took a few deep breaths and suppressed his fighting spirit with great difficulty. He calmed his breathing and said proudly, "Is it very fast to break through 1 stage in 4 hours? You haven't seen anyone faster than that." The white-robed man seemed to be startled. He smiled faintly and said, "Have you ever been faster?" Chu Yang smiled mischievously. He stretched out 5 fingers and said lightly, "This young master once broke through 5 levels in 2 hours." He was telling the truth. In fact, it was absolutely true. If Chu Yang still couldn't figure out who this person was after this period of fighting, then he would really be a blockhead. If he still couldn't figure out this person's intention and goal, then he really should just cut his own throat. This white-robed man was definitely the one that Wei Wuyan mentioned. The king of the entire Black Blood Forest, the absolute overlord. Chu Yang was absolutely certain about this conjecture of his. In the entire Black Blood Forest, he was the only one who could wear white clothes. In the entire Black Blood Forest, there was only this person who could allow them to pass through unimpeded with just 1 sentence. This kind of power, this kind of prestige, only this person could achieve. As for his purpose, Chu Yang could also guess it. Because ever since the 2 battles when he first entered the Black Blood Forest, he didn't fight again. That night, it was Wei Wuyan who fought. Furthermore, the reason must be because of him. Otherwise, he would have fought with Wei Wuyan instead of him. Since the reason was because of him, then it must be because of him in those 2 battles. The only abnormality in these 2 battles was that he had easily entered the Tao state. To be able to attract such a powerful person and make such a powerful person concede unconsciously, allowing him to pass through unimpeded. This was the only reason. Furthermore, it was precisely because of this that this white-robed man repeatedly sought him out for a battle. Every time, the white-robed man grasped the timing very accurately. He made Chu Yang try his best but was always at a disadvantage. Chu Yang was 100% sure that this white-robed man was doing this for the sake of the Tao state. Therefore, Chu Yang said proudly, "I've broken through 4 or 5 stages consecutively before." In this case, this wasn't arrogance, nor was it conceited, but Chu Yang wanted to further raise his bargaining chip. Only by raising his own level to a certain level could he talk to the white-robed man as an equal. Otherwise, no matter how talented you were, if you didn't have a higher bargaining chip, the white-robed man could kill or force you to do as he wished. Indeed, after Chu Yang said this, the white-robed man seemed to smile lightly and said, "You really broke through to the 5th stage in 2 hours previously?" Chu Yang said proudly, "Of course. In front of an expert like you, do you think I'll lie to you?" The white-robed man nodded and smiled. "Good, good, good, this is really very good." The atmosphere instantly became peaceful, and Chu Yang was also slightly relieved. In the face of such a powerful person, and a temperamental one at that, he really had to be careful at every step. Every word had to be carefully considered. It was very difficult. The next moment, the white-robed man said, "How does it feel to break through 5 stages in one go?" "Awesome," Chu Yang said without hesitation, and a smile of reminiscence appeared on his face. Thinking of the shocked looks of Gu Duxing, GMO and the others every time he broke through, his smile became especially warm and nostalgic. "Awesome?" The white-robed man laughed. "Then do you want to feel awesome again?" "Whoever doesn't want to is a fool," Chu Yang blurted out. Halfway through his words, he suddenly paused and said in shock, "What do you want to do?" "I want to see you break through once," the white-robed man said gently, "otherwise I'll think that you're lying to me." Suddenly, he opened his hands, and the entire black blood forest instantly turned dark. "If you don't break through, you'll die here," the white-robed man shouted coldly and rose up. It was as if the clouds in the skies suddenly poured down in torrents. Everywhere it went, there was only destruction. The pressure this time was 10 times that of the previous battle. If the white-robed man used the power of a third-stage monarch in the previous battle, the attack this time was definitely at the level of a third-stage monarch, or even beyond that. Chu Yang turned pale with fright. Sword Master Chu definitely didn't expect that this man would be so capricious even though he obviously had a request for him. The previous moment, it was still calm, and the next moment, it was earth-shattering. The change was so sudden that Chu Yang was completely caught off guard. This even directly broke Sword Master Chu's understanding of human nature to a certain extent. This time, he definitely didn't hold back at all. No matter if it was his killing intent, aura, spirit, consciousness, aura, everything was filled with firm killing intent. Just like what the white-robed man said, "If you want to survive this move of mine, you must break through. And you must break through at the last moment. If you don't break through, you'll die." Chu Yang roared and mobilized all his cultivation, but he still couldn't resist. The white-robed man's earth-shattering attack was about to reach him. At this moment, in the tribulation space, the sword spirit also roared angrily and threw away all his scruples. His 2 hands instantly danced in the tribulation space, making whooshing sounds. In an instant, he used all his strength to convert all the medicinal power that he could mobilize into pure spiritual energy and poured it into Chu Yang's meridians without reservation. He didn't even consider whether Chu Yang could accept it or not. But now, this was the only way. If he didn't do this, Chu Yang would be crushed under this move. In this way, there was still some hope of surviving the opponent's attack. Although he would definitely be seriously injured, as long as the white-robed man didn't pursue him, the sword spirit was confident that he could save Chu Yang again. Even if he died on the spot, he was confident that he could bring Chu Yang back to life. However, just as Chu Yang was mobilizing all his cultivation and potential, and the sword spirit was also converting all the medicinal power into spiritual energy and pouring it into Chu Yang's meridians, the white-robed man suddenly laughed and retreated. "Little brother, don't be nervous. I'm just joking with you." "Fuck." Chu Yang immediately went crazy and collapsed to the extreme. He used all of his strength to curse in a thunderous manner. He first cursed out the first word. Then, he gritted his teeth and cursed out the last 3 words with boundless grief and indignation. "You bastard!" Chu Yang's face instantly distorted. At this moment, it was no longer a matter of cursing. If the 18 generations of this white-robed man's ancestors were in front of Chu Yang, Sword Master Chu would definitely go crazy and kill all of them, regardless of whether they were male or female. This was too much. Chu Yang couldn't help but break down. Because he was already like an arrow on the bow. All his cultivation had been mobilized and the medicinal power of the sword spirit was in place. It was equivalent to accumulating power in his meridians that was equivalent to more than 10 times his current cultivation. He only needed to wait for the white-robed man's attack to come and then he would fight back crazily. With the help of this violent collision, he would vent out this huge power and make use of the recoil to reduce this part of the damage so that he could retreat and protect himself. This was also the only way to save his life in the situation just now. Other than that, there was only death. Who would have thought that just as he was about to explode, the white-robed man suddenly disappeared without a trace and even said, "Don't be nervous, I'm just joking with you." This was really something that he didn't expect even in his dreams. Wasn't this a scam? Moreover, when Chu Yang wanted to find a random target to vent his power on, he realized that everything around him had become a black hole, and it was a black hole that was expanding outwards. He actually didn't have any target to vent his power on. Even when he vented his power on the ground, he realized that it was as if the ground had lost half of its power. He couldn't vent it out. He could only hold it in his body. Chu Yang was instantly stunned. For example, it was like a volcanic eruption that connected the magma of several earth veins and was about to erupt from here. When it was about to rush out of the ground, it realized that it couldn't. That was definitely a spectacular scene comparable to dozens of nuclear bombs exploding at the same time. Thinking about the consequences, one would know how miserable young Master Chu was now. Damn you! Damn you! You've really screwed me over! You've really screwed me over! Chu Yang didn't know what to say anymore. Feeling that his body was rapidly swelling and about to explode, Chu Yang wanted to cry but had no tears. He never thought that as the master of the Calamity Sword, not only did he not die in the hands of the enemy, but he actually played himself to death. Damn it, even if he died, he really didn't have the face to face any ghosts in the netherworld. It was pardonable if he died from eating too much. But for him to die from eating too much? It was definitely a joke. Severe insomnia, extremely excited. After lying down and getting up again, he tossed about for 7 or 8 hours and decided to just write. I'll drink some wine in the afternoon and let myself sleep early. So today I'll try to update as early as possible. If I don't sleep, I'm afraid I'll really give my life to the #1 monthly votes. Chapter 907. The sword spirit in the tribulation space was also stunned. He tried his best to convert the medicinal efficacy stored in Chu Yang's meridians and the medicinal efficacy that he had extracted into spiritual energy and sent it over. It even included the power of some existing elixirs. This was already the maximum power that the sword spirit could extract. How exaggerated was the sword spirit's refining ability? How shocking was his ability? With the convenience of a spirit body, and with a speed that was unprecedented in 10,000 years, he went all out to extract the medicinal efficacy. How terrifyingly fast and effective was it? One could totally imagine how terrifying the spiritual energy that the sword spirit sent out this time was. But at this moment, the sword spirit stopped. Once the medicinal efficacy was converted into spiritual energy, the sword spirit couldn't extract it back even if he wanted to. Only a huge amount of spiritual energy was left in Chu Yang's meridians. At this moment, the sword spirit was also stunned. Damn it, why did it stop at this time? The spiritual energy had already been instilled into Chu Yang's meridians. It definitely couldn't be sent into Chu Yang's meridians in the shortest time possible. What should I do? Could it be that a tribulation sword master would actually die because his own sword spirit was stuffed to death? This is going to be a joke? But at this moment, there was really nothing that he could do. If the sword spirit had a body, he could help Chu Yang from the outside. But he didn't. If he asked Wei Wuyan for help, he would reveal the secret of the tribulation sword master. The sword spirit and Chu Yang were both helpless. If there's really no other way, it seems that we can only ask Wei Wuyan for help. If the secret is revealed, then so be it. But I'm afraid even Wei Wuyan can't withstand this power now. The possibility of Wei Wuyan exploding together with the power is infinitely close to 100%. These should be enough for you to feel good again, right? The man in white stood in the air and looked at Chu Yang. He said lightly, "Quick, break through 5 stages in 2 hours. Show me." Do. Chu Yang almost vomited blood. You're doing this just for this? The man in white said, "Isn't this what you said?" Chu Yang was speechless. That was before. How can breaking through 5 stages in 2 hours as a martial artist be compared to breaking through 5 stages in 2 hours as a sword sovereign? 1 stage of sword sovereign is enough for 1,000 people to break through to martial artist at the same time. The man in white said indifferently, "What does it matter? When you were a martial artist, your meridians were able to withstand the yuan qi of breaking through 5 levels. Then, when you were a sword emperor, you would also be able to withstand the yuan qi of breaking through 5 levels. It's the same in the first place. The level of knowledge is different, that's all." Chu Yang's body had already started to swell. His face and neck had turned red as he panted, "You're talking nonsense? Why don't you try? According to what you said, your current body should be able to withstand the power of breaking through 5 levels at the same time. Why don't you try breaking through yourself? It's easier said than done." The man in white said faintly, "I would like to. But in this world, where would there be enough spiritual energy for me to absorb 5 levels at once?" As he spoke, he actually felt a little melancholy and sighed. Chu Yang said angrily, "Stop sighing. I'm about to explode. You scammer. Hurry up and think of a way. Fuck, you can't just leave me like this. Let me tell you, the power of the Tao realm will be gone once I explode." In the tribulation space, the sword spirit was so anxious that he stomped his feet. "Young master, you're still threatening him. Will you die if you say a few soft words?" Although he couldn't see the expression of the man in white, Chu Yang could feel that the other party seemed to be frowning. Then he asked in puzzlement, "Don't you have a way to solve this situation? What a great opportunity this is." Chu Yang was so anxious that he didn't notice that when the man in white spoke, he said, "You all," instead of "you." He said angrily, "In this situation, the only solution is to have a head-on collision with you and then vent this power and recover my original cultivation. Although I'll suffer serious internal injuries, they won't be fatal. That's the only way." "Nonsense." The man in white said angrily, "I spent so much effort to dig out all of your potential, dug out all of your hidden medicinal power, and then used a great divine ability to hide heaven and earth, leaving you with nowhere to vent. I created such a rare opportunity for you, and you actually want to vent it just like that? Waste it. A great opportunity for me?" Chu Yang held his head that was about to explode. He groaned, "Is it an opportunity for me to explode?" At this moment, the white-robed man floated from the void in front of Chu Yang like an illusion. He said faintly and somewhat impatiently, "Can't you suppress your blood and qi with your danton and spit it out once with your fighting spirit?" Chu Yang resisted the feeling of his meridians bursting. He gritted his teeth and said, "When my fighting spirit rises, my blood and qi will naturally boil. How can I use the rising fighting spirit to suppress my blood and qi? As for the dantian, there's no need to talk about it. With the dantian swallowing and spitting, the meridians in the body will flow in reverse. At such a critical moment, there's no hope at all. Besides, even if the meridians flow in reverse after the dantian swallows and spits, the dantian will still explode from bearing such a huge force." Sword Master Chu himself felt that it was a little unbelievable that he actually had the mood to discuss such an important martial art problem with the man in white at such an uncomfortable moment. The man in white said angrily, "Idiot! The human dantian is a treasure given by heaven and earth. How can it explode so easily? The swallowing and spitting of the dantian is a cultivation method. How can the meridians flow in reverse? The swallowing and spitting of the dantian actually needs the meridians to flow in reverse? What kind of nonsense has this continent taught us?" Even though Chu Yang was already on the verge of collapse from the discomfort, he couldn't help but be dumbfounded when he heard this. What kind of logic has this continent taught us? Are you not? Are you not from this continent? The man in white snorted coldly and said angrily, "How can this continent tolerate me?" When this sentence came out, Chu Yang only felt a shock in his heart. There was actually a slight pause in his brain and a brief moment of clarity. That was a kind of clarity that almost made the world collapse. How can this continent tolerate me? What kind of arrogance and disdain was this? Extremely shocked, Chu Yang gritted his teeth and asked, "But how can the fighting spirit and blood be suppressed?" The man in white snorted coldly. The fighting spirit rises in the brain and the blood and qi boil in the heart. Don't you understand this? If you don't control your heart, how can you see the great Tao? He gazed at Chu Yang's body that was gradually swelling up and said lightly, if you can understand the meaning of my words one day, and achieve a state where your fighting spirit rises to the level of swallowing the heavens and swallowing the earth, but your blood and qi circulates smoothly like ice and snow, then you will be invincible in this world. The fighting spirit rises and swallows the heavens and the earth, but the blood and qi circulates smoothly like ice and snow. In this way, you will be invincible. Chu Yang's heart was moved. He firmly remembered this sentence in his heart. His body was getting more and more uncomfortable. Chu Yang already felt that his meridians were slowly cracking. He tried to follow the method that the man in white said to retract his fighting spirit and suppress his blood and qi. However, he couldn't do it after several attempts. The man in white watched silently. Finally, he sighed and said, in the end, it's not. Oh well, let me give you a hand. The man in white floated forward. His left hand reached up and clenched. Chu Yang suddenly felt that the fighting spirit that rose on the surface and the fighting spirit in his heart, this invisible and mysterious thing, was actually caught by this hand. It was caught. This was an invisible thing, but it was caught by the man in white's hand. Chu Yang could even feel that the man in white's hand was ice cold. Immediately, the man in white's other hand pressed on Chu Yang's chest and pressed inwards. Chu Yang's chest suddenly sank inwards, and an ice-cold feeling gushed into his heart. His heart, which had been beating like a galloping horse, gradually calmed down. At the same time, the white-robed man's left palm moved downwards and released it. That battle intent suddenly vented out, and a wave of violent emotions began to suppress his mind. His heart beat slower and slower. The violent emotion above became more and more intense. It was a complete contradiction. It was about to converge in his dantian. The moment Chu Yang's heart stopped beating, the man in white slapped his dantian. Then he sucked outwards and pressed inwards. Chu Yang groaned. He only felt that all the spiritual energy in his dantian was sucked out. In an instant, his dantian was empty. It was an indescribable feeling of emptiness and discomfort. It was as if his cultivation had been completely crippled at this moment. If he maintained this state, he was sure that not even a finger would listen to his command. Immediately, his cultivation returned like a raging wave. The spiritual energy that was sucked out was actually sent back in. It actually completed the swallowing and spitting of his dantian just like that. Moreover, Chu Yang discovered that the moment his dantian was empty, he discovered a huge secret. That was, the dantian was actually an infinitely large space. And the cultivation that he thought was full actually only occupied a small part of his dantian. If it was not completely empty, he would not have discovered it at all. Why was this? But he did not have time to think about it. Because in this short process of swallowing and spitting, his dantian was completely empty. All the spiritual energy in his meridians that was about to explode entered his dantian at the same time. And at this moment, the spiritual energy that he had just spat out returned and merged with the spiritual energy that had just entered. His dantian swelled outwards and immediately returned to its original state. Starting from his dantian, it flowed upwards and started a new cycle. Chu Yang suddenly discovered that all the discomfort and swelling had actually disappeared at this moment. And his body was filled with energy. He was completely in his best state. Such a problem that even a supreme martial artist could not solve in the entire heavenly continent was actually solved so easily in such a way. Such a huge disaster that caused one's expression to change was actually a huge blessing. Chu Yang was really confused at this moment. Who exactly was this man in white? The sword spirit definitely did not know about such a method. If the sword spirit knew, he would have already become a supreme martial artist. And the man in white also said before, how can this continent tolerate me? Then who exactly was he? Where did he come from? Why did he stay in this black blood forest? The heavenly continent was so big. With his cultivation, he could dominate anywhere he went. Chapter 908. Questions lingered in Chu Yang's mind. For a moment, his thoughts were in a mess, and he was actually a little upset. Moreover, Chu Yang realized that Wei Wun, who was so close to him, didn't notice such a big thing happening on his side. The man in white had completely blocked Wei Wuyan's vision and hearing. This made Chu Yang even more shocked. Blocking one's vision and hearing was not as good as defeating the opponent. This was a kind of shielding to a certain extent. What was Wei Wuyan's cultivation? It was 1,000 times more difficult to cut off Wei Wuyan's vision and hide this world in front of Wei Wun than killing Wei Wun. Chu Yang turned back and looked at the man in white. The man in white nodded slightly. Try and see how many levels have you broken through? Chu Yang tried to activate his spiritual power. He felt that his meridians were surging like a river. This level of cultivation. It's not something that a 3rd-grade sword sovereign should have. And not a 7th-grade one. And not an 8th-grade one. 3rd grade, 2nd-grade sword sovereign. Peak level of cultivation. Chu Yang raised his head in puzzlement. Yes, I've broken through 3 levels in one go. I don't feel like I've broken through. It seems that I'm still a 3rd-grade sword sovereign. What's the reason? The man in white snorted. It's about the same as that guy over there. Your cultivation is there, but your realm is not there. Now, you're at most in the realm of a 3rd-grade sword sovereign. Chu Yang smiled and said in a carefree manner, I'll level up eventually. There was strong confidence in his voice, as well as a kind of, don't take it to heart, kind of carefree. The man in white laughed, and his eyes actually flashed with warmth. Your temper is not bad. Like a person? Chu Yang asked. Like who? The man in white sighed and stood there in a daze. For a long time, he didn't speak or move. After a long time, his figure floated and he said, Follow me. After a pause, he said, Both of you follow me. Then, his white robe fluttered, and he walked forward. Wei Wuyan and Chu Lu, who were at the side, suddenly realized that the figures of Chu Yang and the man in white had appeared in the foggy area in front of them. They didn't know what had happened. Seeing that Chu Yang asked the two to follow him, they followed behind him and walked in with the man in white. The man in white walked forward slowly. This time, he finally released his aura. The 3 of them followed behind him. For some reason, they suddenly felt that as he moved forward, the world became brighter and brighter. The gloomy darkness seemed to have disappeared. It was blocked out by him. The 3 of them used their movement techniques and continued forward, covering more than 100 miles. In front of him was a black forest barrier that pierced through the clouds. The man in white separated his hands and shouted, Open! The entire forest barrier suddenly separated from the middle. Chu Yang and the other 2 simultaneously felt a bright light in front of them. They couldn't help but have a feeling of dispersing the clouds and seeing the blue sky. They couldn't help but feel relaxed. After the thicket was separated, the inside was actually filled with red flowers and green willows. The sky was clear and the sun was bright. It was a scene of spring. It was already autumn, yet something like this was happening here. This was strange. Now that they were in the Black Blood Forest and it was dark, it was even more inconceivable that such a fairyland-like place had appeared. The man in white seemed to have sensed the 3's strangeness and said, Although I can't create heaven and earth, I can still use my own methods to create my own sky here. This sentence made Chu Yang and Wei Wuyan's whole body tremble. Open up a piece of my own sky. This sentence was something that the 2 of them didn't even dare to imagine. The 4 of them entered in a single file. This place wasn't big. It looked like it was only about 10 acres of land, but it had everything. Flowers and trees, small bridges, flowing water, shady bamboo paths, gentle breezes, a clear blue sky and white clouds above. Surrounding them were black towering trees that acted as fences. In the north of this place, there was an exquisite house. From bottom to top, it was actually pink. Behind the house, there was a small pond. Beside the pond, there was a part of a small mountain. The mountain rocks were black, and a patch of vines crawled all over the mountain walls. This patch of vines was actually pink in color, faintly exuding a sparkling and translucent color. Once Chu Yang saw it, his eyes instantly lit up, black blood poisonous core vine. Then, the water in the pond below must be the mysterious bone-destroying water? This is where I live. The man in white laughed. In 70,000 years, you're the third person to come here. 70,000 years. Chu Lu'er stuck out her little tongue and said, Then elder, aren't you more than 70,000 years old? More than 70,000 years? The man in white smiled. No, it's just that I've already been here for more than 70,000 years. Chu Yang and Wei Wen felt a little dizzy at the same time. After all, Chu Lu was still a child. After walking in this gloomy and dark place for so long, she suddenly saw such a fairyland on earth. Her expression was a little dazed and full of longing. The man in white turned his head and said to Wei Wen, You bring the little girl around to play. I have something to say to Chu Yang. This sentence was very impolite, and it could even be said to be in order. But Wei Wuyan didn't have any intention to resist. He replied respectfully, Yes. He brought Chu Lu'er to one side. The man in white stretched out his hand and said, Sword Master Chu, please, let's talk under the pergola. Chu Yang smiled and said, Okay. Suddenly his eyes widened. What did you call me? The man in white shook his head and smiled lightly. Tribulation Sword Master, your identity isn't a secret in front of me. Chu Yang replied awkwardly and said in admiration, Miss, you're really amazing. The man in white also stopped his steps. Miss? Chu Yang chuckled. Isn't that the case? The man in white looked at him for a long time and finally nodded. You're really meticulous. Chu Yang laughed. He thought, the flowers here are all red and the rooms are all pink. You actually want to talk under the pergola? Are you not a girl? Of course not. Since you've exposed my identity, I'll also expose yours. Let's call it even. The two came to the pergola and sat down opposite each other. The man in white stretched out his hand and the spiritual energy of the universe rushed over and condensed in his hand. In the blink of an eye, it formed a light green cup. He placed it on the stone table in front of him and it actually made a sound. Then, with another move, the spiritual energy of the universe turned into clear spring water and poured into the cup. It was as if there was an invisible fairy holding a teapot in the sky and elegantly pouring water down. I don't like to drink tea. The man in white smiled. So, I'm a little late. Just drink some water with me. Chu Yang said solemnly, This kind of water is what people dream of but can't drink. As he said, he smiled. Moreover, after drinking the water, this cup can be eaten mouthful by mouthful. It's very beneficial. The man in white smiled. If you can chew it, go ahead and eat it. Chu Yang took a sip and asked intentionally or unintentionally, the 5 people who came the previous few times, they must be the previous Tribulation Sword Masters, right? The man in white shook his head. No. Then he sighed. These 2 people are much more terrifying than the so-called Tribulation Sword Masters. Chu Yang nodded and said, Qin Feng? Lu Yun? The man in white smiled comfortably. It's much more comfortable talking to you. Chu Yang chuckled. He thought, so, other than the Tribulation Sword Masters, only Qin Feng and Lu Yun have been here before. Qin Feng and Lu Yun have good temperaments, but they can't help me. The man in white pondered and said, Chu Yang understood. You need the power of the Tao state? The man in white smiled. That's right. Chu Yang finally understood why she often made some strange gestures during the previous battle. So, she was collecting the power of the Tao state. His previous guess was right. The reason why he could move freely in the Black Blood Forest was because he could easily enter the Tao state. And she needed such power. But what did she need the power of the Tao state for? Chu Yang pondered and said, May I ask what you need the power of the Tao state for? The man in white didn't say anything and sighed. She raised her head and looked at the white clouds floating in the sky. For a long time, she didn't move. Just when Chu Yang thought that today's conversation was over, he heard her say lightly, A long time ago, the space I was in suddenly collapsed. Then, I desperately struggled in the void and didn't know where I was. Finally, one day I crossed through the void and arrived at a strange place. There were no people, no beasts, nothing. There was only abundant spiritual energy in the world. I kept cultivating there. After tens of thousands of years, when I could tear the void apart, I left there and went to look for someone. Chu Yang said, Then it must be your sweetheart? The man in white revealed an embarrassed look and said, No. Suddenly, she said angrily, Why are you asking so much? Chu Yang was speechless. He thought, If it's not him, then it's not him. Why are you suddenly angry? Don't you know that my heart is beating fast when I'm facing such a powerful existence like you? The man in white sighed and said apologetically, I'm sorry. Whenever I talk about him, my mood will be very bad. It's very uncomfortable. Chu Yang said understandingly, I understand how you feel. He thought, if I can't find Jianghu, I will also feel uncomfortable when others talk about her. The man in white was silent for a while and explained, He's my benefactor. Chu Yang said, Oh. The man in white sighed again. I've been searching for the mark of the Great Way, trekking from plane to plane. I don't know how much time has passed, and I don't know how many planes I've stepped on, but I still haven't found him. Every time I enter a plane, I'm not allowed to tear the void of the Great Way in the sky to enter. And this time, tearing the void apart again and again is a powerful restriction on my strength. I've been searching in the endless sky alone, and I've been disappointed time and time again, but I still haven't found him. I don't know where he has gone either. Speaking till here, she seemed to shrink her body and curled up. She hugged her knees with both hands and looked at the white clouds in the sky, lost in thought again. After a long time, Chu Yang heard the sound of splashing. He looked at the ground and saw a few drops of water falling. Those were the tears of the man in white, falling from her eyes that couldn't see her face clearly. I hammered for 17 hours. Aunt Feng came home and brought back a kitten that was just 1 month old. It meowed. It was very anxious, so I brought it over to play. In the end, it lay on the keyboard and didn't move. Aunt Feng was amazed and said, This cat was definitely a man in its previous life. Look at how skilled it is at kneeling on the keyboard. Chapter 909. Chu Yang sighed in his heart. He thought of a scene like this. In the endless void, an infatuated woman was wandering alone, searching for the person she was looking for. She searched through one plane after another, but she still couldn't find the person she was looking for. That kind of speechless desolation, it was a feeling that would make anyone break down. Who could understand the bitterness of searching for hundreds of thousands of years? Chu Yang suddenly thought of the poem that Xue Leihan wrote in his previous life and spread around the world. I thought you were here, so I came, but when I came to this world, you were not here, so I reincarnated again and again, searching for life after life. Every life I dare not forget, just because we once promised, even if you stood me up time and time again, let me wander for life after life. Mortal knows my bitterness, but doesn't know my regret, as he thought he could. Not help but recite it softly. Mortal knows my bitterness, but doesn't know my regret. The woman in white murmured these 2 lines and suddenly smiled faintly. Actually, I don't feel bitterness, but I don't regret it either. Chu Yang sighed and said, That's right. If there is love in your heart, you won't feel bitterness. The woman in white smiled again. That's not true. You are too obsessed with the relationship between a man and a woman, but I don't have the same feelings for him. I'm so obsessed with finding him, just to say thank you to him. She said in a daze, Even if I find him, I won't say a word. I'll just look at him from afar, and that's enough. Chu Yang said sincerely, I hope you can find him sooner. The woman in white said sadly, It's difficult. Just this heaven continent has trapped me. Trapped? Chu Yang said in surprise, You tore through the void like walking on flat ground. How could this heaven continent trap you? The woman in white sighed deeply. I also didn't expect. More than 70,000 years ago, I came here and felt that there were traces of the great Tao here, so I tore through the void and entered this heaven continent. When I entered this heaven continent, I realized that the traces of the great Tao had suddenly changed. Life and death were intertwined. Furthermore, the Tao realm in the sky above the continent was filled with destructive power. Furthermore, this continent had been destroyed before and then rebuilt. When I entered, I was torn apart by the power of the great Tao and the power of the heavenly Tao. My Tao realm power fought against it, and eventually, it was exhausted. When I finally entered, I found that the person I was looking for wasn't here. What made me feel even more helpless was that my Tao realm was severely damaged, and I couldn't get out. Moreover, due to the chaos of the heavenly Tao, the Tao realm power of this continent has become unpredictable and cannot be directly captured from the void. I can only obtain it from people. Moreover, only when people with profound martial arts enter the Tao realm can I capture a trace of Tao realm energy that is almost undetectable. An expert might not even have the chance to enter the Tao realm once or twice in his life. Even if I managed to capture him, it would be like pouring a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. It wouldn't affect the overall situation at all. After collecting for thousands of years, I realized that it was of no use. Disheartened, I lived in seclusion here. The man in white looked at Chu Yang. Then you met me. Chu Yang smiled. The man in white smiled. You are my only hope to recover the Tao realm. Chu Yang touched his nose and smiled bitterly. He didn't think that this was a good thing. Such a terrifying person wanted to collect his Tao realm energy. If she wanted to get the Tao realm energy from him, then what would he do if she kept him here to fight endlessly? He couldn't beat her and he couldn't escape. You can enter the Tao realm at any time. As long as you have space to fight, you can create unlimited Tao realm energy. The man in white looked at him. So, I need your help. I'm afraid I can't help you. Chu Yang shook his head. I still have things to do. How can I accompany you to collect Tao realm energy for long? I don't want to keep you for long. The man in white smiled bitterly. The Tao realm energy can only be produced when you want to fight and have the desire to fight. If I force you, not to mention whether you can produce Tao realm energy or not, even if you don't want to fight, I can't control your body and enter your Tao realm. Then what do you want? Chu Yang asked. I'll follow you. The man in white said lightly. When I collect enough Tao realm energy, I'll leave. During this period, you'll only benefit and improve your strength. You won't lose anything. Once the Tao realm energy is produced, you'll be in a state of enlightenment. You don't need that energy. After you finish comprehending the Tao realm energy, it will dissipate between heaven and earth. You won't lose anything. The man in white said, You won't have any objections, right? When she said, You won't have any objections, it was a question. But to anyone who heard it, it sounded like an affirmative sentence. You won't have any objections. Then, will you help me? Chu Yang mischievously smiled and began to daydream. With an expert who can tear the void apart by herself, who dares to provoke me? I won't help you. The white-robed man looked at him and said, You have a great opportunity. You have to do your own things. Chu Yang said dejectedly, Then you'll just follow me? Of course not. The man in white said casually, Then won't you still help me? Chu Yang was overjoyed. I'll also create countless troubles for you. The man in white said, I'll give you endless opportunities to fight. Chu Yang was stunned. The fog around the white-robed man gradually dissipated, revealing his true appearance. She was dressed in white, and her hair was like the clouds. Chu Yang only saw these. As for the man in white's face, he couldn't describe it at all. It was a kind of extreme beauty, absolute perfection. Absolutely impeccable, without any flaws. No words could describe it at all. Holy, noble, peerless beauty. This woman was the most perfect dream in any man's heart. Even with Chu Yang's willpower, he couldn't help but be dazzled for a while. After a long time, he shook his head and regained his senses. His face collapsed like a bitter gourd. I won't lose face for you if I follow you. The woman in white smiled. This smile was so beautiful, like the birth of a flower. The whole world, even the sun, the moon, and the stars, lost their color in front of this smile. Chu Yang was filled with endless grief and indignation. He finally understood the meaning of the man in white's words. I will only create countless troubles for you, and give you endless opportunities to fight and gain experience. The meaning of this sentence. With such an evildoer by his side, he almost couldn't control himself, not to mention those aristocratic families, playboys, and Jianghu men of the heaven-level continent. in the face of such a beauty, no man could resist such temptation. Then she would follow him around ostentatiously. Chu Yang lowered his head in pain. He could already see countless crazy bees and butterflies swarming towards him. The woman in white smiled and said, "I still have the power of seduction. Believe me, as long as you see my man, there's no one who doesn't want to find trouble with you." Chu Yang covered his face and groaned, "Oh my God. I'm already like a rat on the street, now I'm even more the enemy of the world." The woman in white said helplessly, "Actually, I don't want to either." Chu Yang's face was sad and he didn't even want to speak. "Isn't it good to have me by your side?" The woman in white was very unhappy and even threatened, "Are you not willing?" Chu Yang cried and said, "I'm willing, I'm so happy, that's a good boy." The woman in white laughed. Sigh. Chu Yang looked up and sighed. "Miss, what's your name?" "My surname is Z." The woman in white recalled and said, "My name is Z Xieching." Z Xieching? Chu Yang scratched his head. A woman with such a weird name. "My whole life is because of a promise." Z Xieching said desolately, "I used a name before, Z Nuonyuo. Then I abandoned it." Z Nuonyuo. Chu Yang nodded. This name was like a little girl who didn't know much about the world. No wonder she abandoned it. "You can follow me. But there's something I want to make clear," Chu Yang said seriously. "Say it." Z Xieching smiled slightly. "I already have a wife," Chu Yang said seriously. Z Xieching's expression became very interesting. Then her face sank and she stood up. She said, "Your cultivation increased too quickly just now and you haven't comprehended the realm yet. Come, I'll help you comprehend." Chu Yang was shocked and said, "It's not too late to comprehend later. Let's strike while the iron is hot." Z Xieching reached out and picked him up and threw him out. Then she moved and attacked him like a storm. "Quickly use your sword. Comprehend." Chu Yang scrambled to get up, but he was already slapped into the air like a rubber ball. Then, there were cracking sounds all over his body. That was a very crazy beating. After a long time, Chu Yang was already groaning on the ground like a pig's head. "Have you comprehended the 7th level?" Z Xieching's shoes appeared in front of him. "Not yet." "Oh, then get up and hit me again. Continue to comprehend." Chu Yang refused firmly. Then he said, "This comprehension needs an opportunity. I'll bestow you with an opportunity." Z Xieching said calmly. Then she hooked Chu Yang with her toes and he couldn't help but flip over. Then, there was another round of beating. After being beaten over and over again, Chu Yang gradually became more tolerant. He could actually launch a counterattack. After a long time, he actually entered the Tao state under such torture. The two of them flipped over and attacked crazily. But there wasn't even a speck of dust on the ground. After a long time, as Chu Yang fell from the sky like a dead pig, the aura of a breakthrough finally appeared. Sword Master Chu finally broke through to the 7th stage of Sword Sovereign. But this Sword Emperor who had just broken through had a bloody nose and a swollen face. His entire body was covered in bruises. Z Xieching looked at him condescendingly and said very casually, "Sword Master Chu, you can practice your sword, but don't practice your cheap mouth. You're now a Sword Sovereign. Remember not to become a cheap sovereign." I'll continue to write the 3rd update. Today's biggest wish, to reach 5,300 monthly votes before midnight. Now it's 5,147. I hope to reach 5,300 by midnight. Brothers and sisters, please fulfill my wish. 5,300 before midnight. Explode today. Continue to explode tomorrow. To reach 5,500 before midnight. Explode all the way to the 31st. Chapter 9-10. Chu Yang wanted to cry but had no tears. "From the moment I agreed to let you follow me, I've already become a lowly emperor." Z Xieching smiled and said, "This is your great fortune. Other people can't wait for me to follow them." Chu Yang rolled his eyes. Thinking that he would be abused every day in the future, and also have to deal with the endless troubles brought by this demon, and deal with those perverts every day. Chu Yang's heart was filled with sorrow. Why is my life so bitter? Chu Yang looked up to the sky and sighed. At this time, Chu and Wei Win walked back. Seeing Chu Yang's appearance, they instantly exclaimed and ran over. Big brother, why are you beaten so badly? Chu Yang smiled with difficulty. I'm already very satisfied that I'm still alive. Wei Win shook his head and sighed. You really? Suddenly, his two eyeballs protruded out of their sockets. You broke through again? He turned around in a daze. Suddenly seeing Zi Sheqing's face, he instantly took a deep breath and was stunned. Chu Lu at the side also sighed. So beautiful, Wei Win also murmured. Yes, so beautiful. Chu Yang became even more sorrowful. What do you know? You guys only see beauty, but I, your big brother, only see endless trouble. Seeing that even with Wei Win's determination, he was actually so dazzled, Chu Yang was completely in despair. It seemed that he couldn't get rid of this trouble. Another 7 days later, Chu Yang sat on the ground, full of energy, and breathed in and out. Wei Win stood at the side in a daze, with a face full of envy, jealousy, and hatred. In these 7 days, he saw Chu Yang enter the Tao state as easily as eating a meal for 11 times. This number almost made Wei Win crazy. In these 7 days, he saw with his own eyes that Chu Yang's cultivation rose from grade Sword Emperor to grade 7 Sword Emperor, then to grade 7 Sword Emperor, then to the peak, then to grade 8 Sword Emperor, then to grade 9 Sword Emperor, then to grade 9 Sword Emperor, then to grade 9 Sword Emperor, and then to the peak. Then, today, he witnessed the battle with his own eyes. It was in this battle that Chu Yang entered the Tao state again, broke through the Sword Sovereign grade, and became a first-grade Sword Sovereign. This was a miracle. Wei Win witnessed the miracle with his own eyes. It's too outrageous. Wei Win murmured, this cultivation speed is really the best in the world. Number 1 in the world? Zi Sheqing looked at Chu Yang and said lightly, this is the number 1 in the world? There was once someone who completed the entire journey from an ordinary person to a supreme being in your Chongtian continent in a single day. Do you believe it? I don't believe it. Wei Win shook his head violently. Even if you beat me to death, I won't believe it. If that's the case, then what's the point of our thousands of years of cultivation? Zi Sheqing said lightly, I didn't ask you to believe me. Chu looked at Zi Sheqing happily, her eyes full of envy. After thinking for a long time, she took out a purple crystal puppy hairpin, which was carved by one Renjia for her. She handed it to Zi Sheqing reluctantly. Sister Zi, you're so beautiful. You'll definitely look better with this. Zi Sheqing smiled warmly. I don't need this. You should wear it. I've been used to not wearing jewelry for many years. Chu said enviously, yes, you're naturally beautiful. Even if you don't wear anything, you'll still be a peerless beauty. Zi Sheqing stroked her hair and said softly, I will be more beautiful than you when you grow up. Really? Chu asked hopefully. Really? Zi Sheqing nodded affirmatively. Chu was instantly elated. After a long time, Chu Yang woke up from his meditation and met Zi Sheqing's eyes. What medicine do you still need for your illness? Zi Sheqing asked. You still need the color lotus. Chu Yang said bluntly. Color lotus? Zi Sheqing frowned. That thing grows there? These days, Zi Sheqing spent time with Chu Lu when she was free. She liked this little girl very much. Therefore, she was more concerned about her. Chu Yang rolled his eyes and said, Anyway, there's none in the Black Blood Forest. After these few days of interaction, he could tell that although Zi Sheqing wasn't young anymore and could be said to be an old monster of hundreds of thousands of years, she didn't know much about things outside of cultivation. She knew a little about the ways of the world, but when it came to things outside of cultivation, there was nothing to write home about. But it was also pardonable. Just by listening to her experience, one could understand. The space that she was originally cultivating in suddenly collapsed, and she arrived at a new plane. There was no one there, only spirit energy. This meant that she had been cultivating alone for tens of thousands of years before she tore open the void and left. Since there was no one there, how could she know about other things? One must know that it was passed down by humans. After that, she wandered through dozens of planes just to find people and had no time to learn anything. And with her character and cultivation, she really couldn't be bothered to learn anything. Anyway, wherever she went, there was nothing that could pose a threat to her. Her body constitution needs the elixirs here. Chu Yang said, especially this black blood poisonous core vine and mysterious bone-destroying water. Zi Xiecheng said indifferently, you want them? Just take them. She asked again, do you want anything else? Chu Yang's eyes lit up. You have anything else here? Although I won't get hurt easily, but after going through a few planes and continents, I've also picked some heavenly treasures along the way. Zi Xiecheng said lightly, if you want them, there's no harm in giving them to you. Give them to me, give them to me. Chu Yang rubbed his hands, unable to contain his joy. At this moment, he felt that it wouldn't be troublesome to bring Zi Xiecheng along. There were actually such things that fell from the sky, elixirs from other planes. For someone like Zi Xiecheng to take a fancy to them, they must be extraordinary. Zi Xiecheng nodded lightly. With a swoosh, a pile of elixirs that looked like a small mountain appeared. These are from the Black Blood Forest. With another swoosh, another pile appeared. These are from the Dream Xian continent. These are from the Purple Smoke continent. These are from the Pingyang continent. These are... Looking at the piles of elixirs in front of him, Chu Yang was so excited that his face was contorted. Wow, this is great. He was about to go forward and take them all. The sword spirit in the space of tribulation was also so excited that he danced with joy. These are all top-grade elixirs. I can give you these from the Black Blood Forest. With a wave of her hand, Zi Xiecheng kept the rest. Then, Chu Yang was stunned. What about the rest? Looking at the black elixirs in front of him, Chu Yang suddenly felt extremely disappointed. Originally, if she didn't take out the other elixirs, Chu Yang would be satisfied with these. Extremely satisfied. It was far beyond the kind of satisfaction that he expected. But now, looking at the pile in front of him, he was too dissatisfied. These are my rewards to you. I'll give you 1 elixir for every Tao state energy that I collect from you. I'll pay immediately upon receiving the goods. No credit, Zi Xiecheng said impartially. Oh. Chu Yang was instantly discouraged. So you're still thinking of this? Zi Xiecheng smiled. If I didn't have the means to control you, wouldn't I have been used by you all along the way? Do you think I can't tell that you're cunning? I'm not so bad. Chu Yang touched his nose a little embarrassedly. Rolling his eyes, he said, since that's the case, I've let you collect Tao state energy 10 times in this half a month. You should also give me 10 elixirs. As he said, he stretched out his hand righteously. I can give these to you. Zi Xiecheng didn't hesitate at all. She casually took out 10 types of elixirs and threw them on the ground as if she was throwing rubbish. Here, these are for you. Chu Yang said angrily, can't you be gentler? These are things that will cause all their spiritual energy to run away once they're broken. Zi Xiecheng curled her lips in disdain. Chu Yang could completely read her expression. So what if they run away? I don't care about them anyway. They're even more useless to me. Chu Yang sighed and walked over to take a look. He couldn't help but be angry. These 10 types of heavenly treasures are really heavenly treasures. And they're all top grade. It's just that these are 10 identical fruits and not 10 different types. These were dragon saliva fruits. Every one of them was crystal clear and contained a huge amount of spiritual energy. They were the size of a fist and seemed to have a layer of frost on the surface. Even if they were placed on the ground, they actually couldn't be seen clearly. When the sun shone on them, they would become completely invisible to protect themselves. So be it. Chu Yang could only comfort himself. Anyway, it's better than nothing. With a wave of his hand, he kept them all with a swoosh. In the tribulation space, the sword spirit started to be endlessly busy. He divided, categorized, and planted the elixirs that could continue to evolve into the soil so that they could continue to grow. As for the elixirs that couldn't continue to grow, he used the Xianyin Jade and Xianyang Jade to make a huge shelf of elixirs and set it up. The mysterious Yin jade and the mysterious Yang jade had been made into thin and long jades by the sword spirit. Some of them were long and wide, and some were thin and long. In fact, they had been partitioned into small spaces one after another. Each of them was 50 feet high and 70 to 80 feet wide. So, these 5 big shelves were completely filled. If anyone saw that the Xian Yin jade and Xian Yang jade, which could only be found by chance, were being wasted like this, they would definitely vomit blood and die from heartache. Now, in the tribulation space, there was not only a vitality spring, but also a soul-quenching spring. There were 2 springs, one in the south and one in the north. Next to the soul-quenching spring, there were 2 soul-quenching pools for the sword spirit and Chu Yang to soak in every day. It couldn't be said that today was very comfortable. Next to the vitality spring, the sword spirit opened up a large piece of land. Now it was full of elixirs. The sword spirit had no choice but to open up another large piece of land and leave it idle. He couldn't help but sigh. This sword master is really different from the previous ones. He didn't use this piece of land in the past. Now he seems to want to fill it up. This is really satisfying. Third update. I just checked the monthly votes of the top 4 monthly votes. It seems that we increased the least today, requesting monthly votes, requesting recommendation votes, requesting evaluation votes. Chapter 9:11. Can we go now? Zi Xiecheng looked at Chu Yang and asked lightly. When she said this, her expression was very indifferent. She had lived here for 70,000 years, but she didn't seem to have any feelings for this place. There wasn't the slightest bit of nostalgia. Wait for a while, I'll deal with the black blood poisonous core vine and keep the mysterious Yin bone-destroying water. As Chu Yang said, he walked towards the back of the room. You can also take this time to pack your things, so that you don't have to come back to take them in the future. As long as I leave this place, I won't come back again. Zi Xiecheng's gaze wandered around the room, and there was still a trace of sadness in her eyes. After living here for so long, I have feelings for the room. This person's feelings are really very strange. Although she was peerless, noble, and holy, she always gave people the feeling that she was above the common populace, with a sense of superiority, and also a sense of coldness and ruthlessness. Besides the initial amazement, Chu Yang didn't see her as a woman anymore after interacting with her for a long time. It was too terrifying. Wei Wuyan saw that she was pretty, and nothing happened to her if he took a few more glances. But if he took a few more glances, he would immediately be abused. It was known as absorbing the power of the Tao state. In short, she used all means and excuses to force Chu Yang to fight and then enter the Tao state. Even a battle maniac like Chu Yang, with such unparalleled tenacity, was tormented by her to the point that he almost lost interest in fighting. Fighting, there had to be wins and losses. What was the point of always losing and being abused? But at this moment, she slightly showed a trace of a woman's sensibility. She walked quietly to the flower rack and sat down. She silently looked at the place where she had lived for 70,000 years and didn't move at all. Even if she was disappointed, even if she was heartbroken, even if she couldn't bear to leave, she could only keep it in her heart. Zi Xiecheng sat quietly, her face cold. Wei Wuyan and Chu Lu sat at the side, not daring to disturb her. Chu Yang walked towards the mysterious Yin bone-destroying water. Whether Zi Xiecheng knew or not, Chu Yang didn't want her to follow him. Chu Yang didn't even want Wei Wuyan and Chu Lu to know about this. It wasn't that he didn't trust her, but there were too many people around. Because there might be another world below the black blood poisonous core vine. The black blood poisonous core vine was different from the black blood vine. Although it didn't have any toxicity, it was known as the source of all poisons. This title wasn't just for show. Generally, where black blood vines grew, there would definitely be a concentration of absolute poison below. But where the black blood poisonous core vine grew, there was a very high chance that there would be a heaven poison jade crystal underneath. The heaven poison jade crystal was one of the great miracle medicines of the heavens. The heaven poison jade crystal was extremely useful and helpful to Chu Yang, the sword spirit, the tribulation sword, and Chu Lu, Chu Yang wouldn't dare to reveal such a secret to someone he trusted. They would really be exterminated. Walking closer to the mountain wall, he found that the water was indeed frighteningly clear. Even though he was still 100 feet away, he could faintly feel a bone-chilling cold. It really is the burning bones cold spring, the sword spirit said with an excited sigh. On the surface of the water, water vapor rose and formed a strange mist. It was like the shape of a burning flame. It was boiling and rising continuously, giving off a faint hissing sound. This spring water is extremely cold. Within 10 feet, ordinary people will be frozen to death. Within 3 steps, their bones will be frozen and shattered. Within 1 step, even a revered martial artist won't be able to stand. Within 1 breath, one won't be able to walk even if he wants to. The sword spirit explained in a low voice in the tribulation space, but once one enters this water, he will be burned instantly, until he turns into a pile of ashes. This is the uniqueness of the mysterious bone-burning water. Chu Yang asked, "Can this spring water be used on men?" The sword spirit smiled. "Of course it can be used on men, but there has to be a limit. Also, it can only be smeared and not directly drunk. If a woman drinks it directly, her constitution will be better with the protection of a powerful expert. But if a man drinks it directly, he will be burned to death by internal fire." Chu Yang nodded. "Smear? What's smear?" "Smear. It means that you have to smear this spring water continuously on your joints. After more than 10 times, your joints will become soft. At that time, even if you attack from the front, it will be as natural as attacking from the front." The sword spirit said. Chu Yang frowned and thought silently. After a long time, he said, "What about me? Do I need to smear this spring water?" The sword spirit smiled. "You can smear it, but I advise you not to. Not only you, but also your brothers, Gu Duxing and Dong Wushang, are not suitable for smearing this spring water. The others don't matter." Chu Yang said, "Oh? Because you and Gu Duxing are too sharp, and Dong Wushang is too domineering. If you allow your joints to move freely, you will lose that kind of indomitable and tragic momentum. The loss outweighs the gain." Chu Yang nodded in understanding. "I see." The sword spirit laughed. "But this mysterious bone-burning water can be used to water several kinds of elixirs in the tribulation space. Let me put this spring water into the tribulation space first." As he said, Chu Yang strode forward to the side of the cold pond. In the tribulation space, the sword spirit shouted, "Come in." He made a strange gesture with his big hand and pulled it in. With a splash, the entire bone-burning cold pond disappeared together with the pond. Only the bare ground and a big pond of 100 feet deep were left. The bone-chilling cold also disappeared in an instant. Over there, the 3 of them looked over curiously. Wei Wuyan stood up and wanted to help, but he was stopped by Zi Sheqing. "Don't go over." "Why?" Wei Wuyan didn't understand. "More people means more power." Zi Sheqing said lightly, "If he needs help, he will say it. Since he didn't say it, he naturally has his reasons. Then you'd better not move." "Oh," Wei Wuyan replied embarrassedly and sat down. It wasn't that he had to help, but it was really too uncomfortable to sit here. He couldn't sit still. Firstly, the other party was a great expert that he couldn't imagine. Secondly, the other party was a peerless beauty. Wei Wuyan felt very ashamed. He was already more than 1,000 years old, but he couldn't control himself in front of this stunning beauty and behaved like a young boy. After being stopped by Zi Sheqing, Wei Wuyan could only sit down again. Suddenly, he understood the reason why Chu Yang sighed at the mention of Zi Sheqing these few days. With his cultivation and experience, he was already like this when he saw Zi Sheqing. If Zi Sheqing followed Chu Yang out of the Black Blood Forest, then Wei Wuyan shuddered. That would be a huge trouble. Thinking of this, Wei Wuyan looked at Zi Sheqing with a lingering fear. He finally understood what the elders often said: marrying a wife, marrying someone who can get by is enough. Why did you marry such a beautiful one? You would get yourself killed for no reason. This was true. If Chu Yang brought Zi Sheqing out, it wouldn't just be a fatal disaster. It would be making the whole world his enemy. What a demon! What a disaster! Wei Wuyan muttered a few words in his heart. Then he rejoiced. Luckily she's not my wife. What are you looking at so sneakily? Zi Xiecheng frowned and scolded him. Wei Wuyan laughed dryly and said, Nothing, nothing. He forcibly turned his neck away. On the other side, Chu Yang had already collected all the black blood poisonous core vines that filled the entire mountain wall. Then he followed the roots of the black blood poisonous core vines and jumped into the huge pit. With a clang, he pulled out his calamity sword and stabbed it down. After a while, a pitch-black stone with a radius of several feet was lifted up from the ground by Chu Yang and thrown aside. Instantly, there was a loud bang. Chu Yang didn't stop. Big stones were lifted up and thrown out by him one by one. Gradually, a stone mountain was piled up behind him. But the black stones seemed to be endless. There was no sign of softening at all. He was 70 feet deep. 100 feet. 200 feet. Raising his head and straightening his back, Chu Yang was a little helpless. It was already 500 feet deep. Looking out from his current position, the sky above his head was already less than the size of a palm. And there was still no trace of the heaven-poisoned jade crystal. There wasn't even any reaction. If not for the sword spirit's constant guarantee, Chu Yang almost wanted to give up. As he dug, Chu Yang complained, Sword spirit, it's already 700 feet deep. Do you think that if I keep digging like this, I'll keep digging for 3 days? The sword spirit almost spurted out. Digging for 3 days? You really know how to think. Hurry up and dig. Even if you dig until Zi Xiecheng's age, you won't be able to dig it out completely in such a long time. Chu Yang sighed and buried his head in his work. Another 500 feet down. Chu Yang was a little out of breath. He raised his head and leaned against the cave wall to rest. Pay attention, we're almost there. The sword spirit said hurriedly, Take out the inner core of the poisonous flood dragon and keep it in your mouth. Also, I'll give you a heavy pill. Eat it first to counteract the poison. Chu Yang was furious. Didn't you say that there's no more heavy pills? The sword spirit smiled embarrassedly. There's only one left. Chu Yang rolled his eyes angrily. You're a miser. He grabbed the heavy pill and threw it into his mouth. After thinking for a while, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. After eating the heavy pill, I'll break through. Didn't you always prevent me from breaking through with the help of the pill? The sword spirit smiled embarrassedly again. But don't you have Zi Xiecheng by your side now? Chu Yang was speechless. He took out the inner core of the poisonous flood dragon and wanted to beat the sword spirit up again. Keep it in my mouth? Tell me how I should do that. The sword spirit was also dumbfounded. The inner core of the poisonous flood dragon was the size of a bowl. Keep it in your mouth? Then hang it in front of your chest and stick your mouth on it, the sword spirit said helplessly. Chu Yang heaved a long sigh. My image has been ruined by you. Young Master Chu's current shape was very strange. There was a huge round pill in front of his chest. Young Master Chu was like a baby drinking milk. He opened his mouth and sealed it tightly. While rolling his eyes, he continued to work. He continued to dig stones. When he dug another 80 feet, there was finally a reaction. Chapter 9:12. As the sword went down, Chu Yang lifted up a small piece of stone, a dark green poisonous gas, which could almost incinerate everything, suddenly rose up. The stone walls around them started to crackle, and a layer of powder started to fall to the ground. It was just a layer of poisonous gas, but it actually dissolved a layer of such hard stones in the black blood forest. Chu Yang's whole body was covered in cold sweat, and his pair of eyeballs suddenly protruded out. Oh my God! The poisonous flood dragon's inner core instantly turned pale white, and there was even a layer of green fog inside. The poisonous gas rose up, and Chu Yang forcibly held his breath. At this moment, the heavy pill's medicinal power exploded, and a layer of light enveloped Chu Yang's body. The poisonous gas floated out with a whoosh. In this small and narrow space, the stone powder scattered and fell with a whoosh. By the time this poisonous gas was completely released, half of Chu Yang's body was already buried by the stone powder. And the light screen formed by the heavy pill also disappeared. Damn, This poison is really fierce. Chu Yang was dumbfounded. His 2 layers of protection, the heavy pill and the poisonous flood dragon's inner core, were the nemesis of all poisons in the world. But after withstanding this poisonous gas, the light screen of the heavy pill was destroyed, and the poisonous flood dragon's inner core also turned green. This is a protective poison, and not the poison of the heaven poison jade crystal. The sword spirit said, the heaven poison jade crystal needs to be released, and it won't be released. It can only harm itself, and not others. You can continue to dig, it should be below. Chu Yang exhaled, took down the poisonous flood dragon's inner core, and soaked it in the vitality spring water. Then he wrapped the stone powder with his elemental energy and slammed it into the stone walls. He thought to himself, this place is in trouble. Whoever comes here in the future and accidentally touches these things, although the toxicity has been greatly reduced, but those below the monarch level will probably be half dead, if not dead. Then he raised his sword and continued to dig. This time, he only dug 5 feet down, and the sword tip obviously felt soft. He carefully pulled it open, and saw that the black stone below was already faintly glowing red. After digging another 3 feet down, the red stone had already turned pink, as if a fault had suddenly appeared. The pink stone was crystal clear. This is the heaven poison jade crystal. Further down was the sky poison jade heart. Inside the sky poison jade heart was the sky poison jade crystal. It has the same structure as the mysterious ice jade paste and the mysterious yang jade essence. The sword spirit was somewhat moved. This is a treasure. Quickly take it all. Chu Yang didn't dare to be negligent. He moved them out piece by piece. The sword spirit collected large chunks of heaven poison jade into the intertwined space. The 2 of them worked together seamlessly, and it didn't take long for them to finish transporting the heaven poison jade. What was revealed below was some pink sky poison jade that faintly exuded a warm smell. What was different from before was that the sky poison jade that appeared now was shrouded in a layer of faint pink mist. The mist floated densely but did not disperse when blown away. It was the heaven poison jade heart. Chu Yang carefully chopped the sky poison jade core in pieces without damaging it at all. When he reached the centerpiece, it turned out to be a perfectly round pink jade the size of a human head. It seemed to be flowing inside, as if there was some creature trapped inside. It was constantly tumbling and jumping, struggling. Every time it tumbled, there would be rainbow-colored clouds surging inside. She was so beautiful that she didn't belong to this world. This is the heaven poison jade crystal. The sword spirit looked at the heaven poison jade crystal with some disappointment and said, it's only been a little more than 2 years, and we've already obtained 3 of them. Such fortune, such luck, it's really, Chu Yang chuckled, sword spirit, you've benefited greatly from following me. The sword spirit said with deep emotion, that's true. Chu Yang was originally joking. He didn't expect the sword spirit to actually admit it. The sword spirit said with a smile, actually, the biggest reason why I've benefited from following you is because you treat me as a human. The previous 8 tribulation sword masters only treated me as a sword and a tool. They believed that a sword spirit is an accessory of a sword and has no feelings. Chu Yang said in surprise, what is this saying? Sword spirit, sword spirit, sword spirit. Since it has become a spirit, then it has spirituality. Since it has spirituality, then it has feelings. It has joy, anger, sorrow, and joy. With these, it is equivalent to a person. So, why did they only treat you as a tool? The sword spirit said in a deep voice, this is the difference between people. Chu Yang nodded and said with a smile, it's also the difference between the emotional path and the emotionless path, right? The sword spirit smiled. Exactly. Chu Yang still wanted to say something, but he felt a burning fire in his dantian. The medicinal effect of the heavy pill had already taken effect completely. In an instant, his whole body almost swelled up, but there was no pain at all. Instead, there was a strange kind of comfort and he felt extremely satisfied. This kind of feeling rose continuously like a tide and lasted for an hour. Chu Yang felt that his meridians were expanding little by little and becoming more flexible little by little. The internal energy in his body was increasing continuously and stabilizing at the same time. At the same time, his mind seemed to be constantly flushed and washed, as if it was a reef that was exposed to the surface of the sea and was constantly being baptized by the wind and waves. Every moment, there seemed to be new realizations appearing. Chu Yang suddenly felt that his consciousness seemed to have left his body and wandered in the endless void. Countless stars were blinking beside him. Every time they blinked, they seemed to transmit a different kind of realizations to him. He was immersed in this beautiful dreamlike state and actually forgot everything. Under the flower canopy in the distance, Zi Sheqing suddenly raised her head and looked over in surprise. Because at this moment, she actually realized that Chu Yang had disappeared from her senses. He had completely disappeared without a trace. At the same time, a wave of pure Tao state energy appeared as though it was boundless. This is not just the pure Tao state energy. This is the heavenly way energy. Zi Sheqing was taken aback. With a swoosh, she disappeared from where she stood. She had already made that mysterious hand gesture in midair. This Tao state energy that suddenly appeared was far stronger than before. Zi Sheqing was full of excitement. Wei Wuyin and Chu Lu also wanted to go over and take a look. But just as they were about to move, they realized that they could not move. The internal energy in Chu Yang's body was like a well. And at this moment, there was a big fountain at the bottom of the well. It was surging and pushing up the water level of the well. As for the comprehension in his mind, it was even more chaotic, but it was also very orderly. His cultivation was rising steadily. Sword Sovereign, 1st grade. Continued to break through. 2nd grade. Stage. 3rd grade. After a long time, Chu Yang woke up from a comfortable state. He only felt that his body was floating and almost weightless. In his mind, it was as if he had cultivated for hundreds of years. The realizations were so clear. Level by level, he had reached a level that he did not even dare to dream of. With a slight movement of his internal energy, Chu Yang felt that his body was floating. With a shake of his arms, he actually rose up to a height of 300 to 400 feet. His mind shook violently and Chu Yang immediately landed again. What's going on? This is the heavy pill, the real heavy pill. The sword spirit's voice was filled with pride. One for life and death, one for flesh and bones, one for changing the root of the body, one for heaven. The real heavy pill. Chu Yang muttered to himself. He only knew that the heavy pill was extremely overbearing, but he had never taken it before. He had only taken the incomplete version of the heavy pill for healing. Now that he had eaten it, he knew that the heavy pill was actually so powerful. This heavy pill allowed you to raise your cultivation by 4 stages. It has raised your cultivation from 1st grade Sword Sovereign to 5th grade Sword Sovereign. The Sword Spirit said, at the same time, it has also raised your cultivation level by a whole 10 grades. Now, your cultivation level is already 1st grade Martial Saint. Chu Yang himself could not help but take in a breath of cold air. He had long heard of the power of the heavy pill and knew about its functions. But when it was finally his turn today, he still felt shocked. Life and death, flesh and bones. Disregarding grades, raise cultivation level. Disregarding grades, rebirth. Disregarding grades, raise cultivation level by 10 grades. Now, Chu Yang finally understood the meaning of these words. There won't be any side effects, right? Chu Yang was surprised but also doubtful. He asked, any medicine, any cultivation level, as long as it is raised with the help of medicine, there will definitely be side effects. The Sword Spirit said solemnly, that's why I don't recommend you to use the heavy pill to cultivate. But now that you have Zi Sheqing by your side, you can overcome the side effects under her super pressure. Using the high pressure, you can condense your cultivation into a real one in the shortest time possible. Of course, it's also because of the heavenly poison jade crystal. Other than the heavy pill, there's nothing else that can suppress it. That's why I let you take one. Chu Yang's face turned bitter. That means, from the moment I took the heavy pill, I immediately had to face Zi Sheqing's abuse, and it's even worse? The Sword Spirit actually smiled gloatingly. If you want to understand it this way, it's fine. Chu Yang was surprised. Suddenly, he thought of something. Jianghu and my parents have both taken the heavy pill. Are they okay? The sword spirit laughed. Jianghu is okay. Because the heavy pill is mainly used to rebirth and treat her old illness. It did not raise any cultivation level. Besides, she didn't have any cultivation level to raise at that time. So, it can only be hidden in her meridians. As her cultivation deepens, it will slowly unleash its function. There's no effect. Chu Yang said, Jianghu is okay. Then what about my parents? The sword spirit touched his chin. They are somewhat affected. Because when breaking through to the supreme martial artist level, the bottleneck is much harder to break through compared to ordinary people. You must know that forcibly raising one's cultivation level will definitely face greater obstacles. However, with their aptitude, it's not certain how long it will take for them to reach that level. By then you may have a way. Chu Yang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Her white clothes fluttered as she flew into the sky. She looked at Chu Yang in shock. What's going on? Today, he went for a massage and had his penis removed. Both shoulders, the back of his neck, his trapezius muscles, his waist, all the way to the sciatic nerve of his buttocks. More than 10 purplish-black lumps protruded out. What the heck? It was raining in Lai Wu. The autumn wind was cold. On the way back, he received the attention of all the ladies, feeling smug. When he reached home and looked in the mirror, he realized that the scar on his neck could not be covered at all. It was a spectacular sight, as if a black bear tattoo had been exposed. No wonder they looked at me. They must have taken me for a gangster. I'm very sorry for the late update today. I have to hurry up and write my story. I've just finished the treatment and my whole body feels good. So, I'm preparing to explode tomorrow and the day after. Chapter 9:13. Zi Xiecheng's bright eyes were filled with disbelief and astonishment. In these short 4 hours, the energy of the Tao state that she had collected was actually 100 times more than what she had collected in the past few days. So, as soon as this state ended, she hurriedly flew over to ask. This question was not important, because she had involuntarily added the essence of the universe into her voice. She roared towards the bottom of the well that was more than 1,000 feet deep. There was no place for her voice to disperse. Instantly, it reverberated in the well like thunder. Young Master Chu, who had just broken through, was in for a tragedy. With a scream, he covered his ears and almost rolled on the ground. His 7 orifices were almost bleeding from this violent sound wave. Just as he was about to protest, he saw the big rock above him collapse. The entire well collapsed. With a blood-curdling scream, he was buried alive under the ground. The last thing he saw before he was buried was Zi Xiecheng's pretty face that was full of surprise and a little embarrassed. I've been killed by this woman. I haven't even left the black blood forest and I'm already like this. If I go out, I really don't know what will happen. Femme fatale, the ancients really didn't lie. This was Chu Yang's last thought before he was buried. After a long time, Chu Yang crawled out with his face covered in dust. He lay on the ground with his arms and legs spread out. His chest heaved up and down rapidly as he breathed in the fresh air. There was a big bump on his forehead like a unicorn. It was green and red and swollen, almost as long as a finger. That was when his cultivation was shaken off by the sound wave. Before he could gather his energy, he was hit by a rock. Don't play like this next time. You'll really die. King of Hell Chu said meaningfully. Chu Lu held a wet towel and massaged the horn on her elder brother's head. It's so strange. It's soft and tough. It's bulging inside. Chu Lu simply treated it as a game. Chu Yang breathed in miserably. While enduring his sister's torturous massage, he secretly channeled his energy to reduce the big bump on his head. Chu Lu was startled. Why is it gone? Is really a divine doctor. Divine Dr. Chu sat up and praised. Massaged it for a while and the swelling actually went down. Really? Chu Lu immediately felt a sense of accomplishment as she narrowed her eyes happily. Of course it's real. Chu Yang vowed. If you don't believe me, you can touch it. It's gone, right? So I have this ability. Chu revealed 2 small canine teeth. Big brother, I'll treat your injuries the next time you get hurt. Chu Yang was flabbergasted. Chu rolled her eyes at him. Do you really think I'm stupid? Teasing a silly little girl must give you a sense of accomplishment, right? Chu Yang swallowed his anger and said, No, it's not you who is stupid, it's me who is stupid. Indeed, I was foolish. I knew that my younger sister's IQ was monstrously high, yet I still used such a trick. Let's not even talk about looking for trouble. Just as he tidied himself up, Zi Sheqing walked over. Get up, I have something to ask you. If you have something to say, just say it here. Chu Yang laid on the ground and rolled his eyes. Now, he didn't like this peerless beauty of the continent. Zi Sheqing glared at him and Chu Yang immediately turned his head away. Zi Sheqing was so angry that she laughed. What happened just now? What's the matter with you now? Just now. Now it's what you saw. Chu Yang rolled his eyes. Zi Sheqing's expression became dangerous and her aura became oppressive. Chu Yang jumped up from the ground with a schwa sound. His face was full of smiles. Actually, it's like this. After all, the arm couldn't win against the thigh. One had to bow under the eaves. A few days ago, your cultivation was higher than yours. Zi Sheqing paced around and said thoughtfully, I was your sparring partner for so long before I helped you get even with him. Now, the tables have turned and it's your cultivation that's higher than yours, and it's much higher. Get over here. She was so focused on talking that when she turned around, she realized that Chu Yang was still at the same spot and couldn't help but stare at him. Young Master Chu ran over. Miss Z, what can I do for you? Do you want me to massage your shoulders and legs for you? And give you a massage at the same time? Zi Sheqing stared at him. She was so angry that she was speechless. No matter how old she was still a pure and innocent girl. How could she let a man touch her casually? She even wanted to massage her shoulders and legs? Was that something that could be casually massaged? Do you think I'm your wife? You ate a heavy pill, right? Zi Sheqing asked lightly, Is it because of that thing below? Chu Yang thought, why are you still asking when you already know? This heavy pill is indeed good stuff. Zi Sheqing pondered and stretched out a white and tender hand. Give me one, let me try it. Try it? Chu Yang was shocked by this sentence. This was a heavy pill, not an apple or a pear. How could it be casually tried? These words were said in such a casual manner. No more, just that one. Chu Yang spread out his hands. He wasn't lying or evading. He really didn't have any more. No more. Zi Sheqing stared at him. Your cultivation has improved, and you've become more daring. Come, I'll comprehend the power of the Tao state with you. Don't. Chu Yang's miserable cries were like a little white rabbit that had fallen into a bear's paw. He was protesting with all his might, but he still couldn't escape the fate of being trampled on. There was bang 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 bang. There was the sound of sandbags being hit. The 4 of them walked in the black blood forest. After that breakthrough, Chu Yang was drilled by Zi Sheqing for another 5 days. Only after he had completely stabilized his cultivation of a few sword emperors, did the 4 of them finally set off. Although Zi Sheqing said that she didn't care, before she left, she still watered the flowers and plants that she had planted. She led the water over so that the flowers and plants could freely absorb nutrients. Then, she walked a few rounds around the house that she had lived in for tens of thousands of years. She finally turned around and left. Along the way, her expression was very gloomy. With a female companion, Zi Sheqing naturally took care of Chu Lu. Wei Wuyan and Chu Yang, the 2 big men, walked in front and talked loudly as they walked. It wasn't known what they were talking about, but the 2 big men laughed loudly together. Then Chu Yang lowered his voice and said a few words. Then, the 2 men started to laugh tacitly. It was filled with a kind of meaning. We're all men. There are some things that you and I understand, and we all understand he. This made Zi Sheqing, who was at the back, laugh until she was furious. But she really couldn't bring herself to eavesdrop on their conversation. It wasn't that she was embarrassed, but that she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to resist slapping these two guys to death. Wei Wuyan's composure was already outstanding now. It was filled with the charm of, "Don't be surprised, and the strange will be defeated." He was really numb from all the blows. Sometimes, when he thought about it, Wei Wuyan's face would be filled with tears. When they first started to travel together, this guy was only a 4th stage sword sovereign, right? After a few days, he automatically broke through to the 5th stage sword sovereign after chatting with his sister for a while, right? Then, after coming to this black blood forest and fighting a few times, he entered the Tao realm a few times. Within 3 days after breaking through to the 5th stage sword sovereign, he even broke through to the 7th stage sword sovereign, right? Then he met Zi Sheqing, and within 7 days, he advanced from the 5th stage sword sovereign to the 1st stage sword sovereign, right? The most ridiculous thing was that a few days ago, this guy went to pick herbs, dug a hole in the ground, and advanced from the 1st stage sword sovereign to the 5th stage sword sovereign. Right? Damn it. Is this something that a human can do? Wei Wuyan recalled that when he was learning martial arts, from the martial king level, he had to fight hard all the way. At the fastest time, it took him more than half a year to advance by 1 level. From the 4th stage martial emperor to the 5th stage martial monarch, he used a total of 127 years' time. And looking at Chu Yang's speed, and he was just an ordinary martial emperor, an ordinary martial monarch. Chu Yang was a sword sovereign, From the 4th stage sword sovereign to the 5th stage sword sovereign. 20 days. If there was a piece of tofu in front of him, Wei Wuyan would have bumped his head into it long ago. It was much better to die from bumping into a piece of tofu than to be affected by this guy, but as these few days passed, especially the last few days, Wei Wuyan no longer felt affected. Breakthrough? Oh, isn't it just a breakthrough? This is very normal. Entering the Tao state? Oh, isn't it just entering the Tao state? This is very normal. What? Comparing me with him? Whoever compares me with him, I'll destroy your whole family. I can be affected, but I can't be compared. Grandma. Women are women. Not knowing what Wei Wuyan said, Chu Yang sighed with emotion. When two men were together, the topic was of course always about women. It was just that this sentence was a little loud. Not only did Zi Sheqing hear it, but Chu Lu also heard it. Both of them couldn't help but perk up their ears. Yes, Wei Wuyan agreed with a sigh. Women can't be measured by common sense, they're unreasonable. Chu Yang was in high spirits and he talked loudly. Even if she has power over the world, she's still a woman. Even if she seduces all living things, she's still a woman. Even if she's cold, ruthless and decisive, she's still a woman. Even if her cultivation is the best in the world, she's still a woman. Zi Sheqing frowned as she listened to this emotional speech. Women are so sentimental and sad. When a tree falls, she'll cry. When the autumn wind blows, she'll cry. Even when a butterfly breaks its wings, she'll sigh for a long time. When parting, she'll be even more teary-eyed. Even when parting with a dog or a flower, she'll be melancholic for a long time. For example, Chu Yang's saliva flew everywhere as he spoke. He thought of his previous life when he was with Mo Qingwu. At that time, Mo Qingwu was extraordinarily sentimental. For example, what? A ghost-like voice asked from behind. The more Zi Sheqing listened, the more she felt that something was wrong. This guy is obviously talking about me. He's really got guts. As he quietly asked this question, his eyes were already filled with rage. Only then did Chu Yang realize that he had opened his mouth, and there were two women behind him. And these two women were existences that he couldn't afford to offend. He couldn't help but panic. Miss Zi, actually I'm not talking about you. Yes. Zi Sheqing kicked him out. I know you're not talking about me, but this has nothing to do with me wanting to beat you up. Chapter 9:14. Chu Yang was silent. He recalled the memories of the first tribulation sword master. I had the heart to turn this brother into a tribulation to stabilize the continent. Who would have thought that I would end up like this? He couldn't help but sigh deeply. From Zi Sheching's words, he finally understood some problems that he couldn't figure out previously. Chu Yang finally understood one point. This black blood forest was the folding point of the heavens continent, and the function of the Tribulation Sword was to maintain the stability of the continent. The Tribulation Sword Master appeared once every 10,000 years. His so-called purpose wasn't to unify the upper three heavens, but to use this boundless killing intent to turn into blood-colored fate energy. With the tribulation as a guide, and with some unknown formation or secret technique, he maintained the stability of the continent for 10,000 years. After the boundary of the black blood forest regained its color after 1,000 years, it turned from hard to soft as usual. This proved that this folding point was about to collapse and couldn't hold on any longer. It was about to collapse, and as long as the Tribulation Sword Master succeeded in reversing the situation, this brother would become a tribulation and be able to stabilize the upper three heavens once again. Or else, it would definitely collapse completely. Just like 10,000 years ago, the entire upper three heavens and lower three heavens would turn into dust and nothing would be left. Thinking of this, Chu Yang's heart suddenly felt heavy. He used his consciousness to ask the sword spirit, "Is that so?" The sword spirit didn't dare to answer and only nodded. Chu Yang was stunned. He had always hoped that he could open the plane channel earlier to bring his brothers up and create a great undertaking together. But at this moment he suddenly hesitated. If they came up, would they really have to turn into tribulations and sacrifice themselves to the continent? If they didn't come up, they would also be crushed to death below. This actually became a dead end. Chu Yang clenched his fists tightly and said lightly in a low voice, "But no matter what, I won't let them die." The sword spirit said somewhat sympathetically, "But if it really comes to that, I'm afraid it's no longer up to you." Chu Yang sneered. Chu Yang's sneer was filled with despair and determination. It was a chilling sneer. The sword spirit suddenly felt a surge of fear. He understood Chu Yang's plan and said hoarsely, Could it be that you? Chu Yang sneered. "That's right. If I really have no choice by then, I still have one last move to use." The sword spirit was stunned. Last move? How could he not know Chu Yang's last move? "With my heart's blood, I will destroy all tribulations." That was a move to kill oneself before killing the enemy. Chu Yang said slowly, "If we can't avoid fate in the end, we can only do so. With my heart's blood, I will destroy all tribulations." After that, if I could turn back time, then I definitely wouldn't choose to become brothers with them. If I couldn't turn back time, then my death wouldn't affect anything. Even if my brothers still had to die, I still died before them. They did not die in front of me. This way, although it's selfish, at least for myself, I have a clear conscience towards my brothers, because in the end, I didn't use my brothers in exchange for anything. The sword spirit let out a long sigh and said, "Have you ever thought that if you weren't the master of the calamity sword and someone else was, your brother would still die? They might not even live that long before they die." Chu Yang smiled warmly, "But that's not because of me. As long as I am here, I will not allow them to die before me." The sword spirit opened his mouth, but felt that no matter what he said, it would be pale and weak. So, he had no choice but to close his mouth and not speak. Chu Yang also didn't speak. Then, he suddenly thought of something. He turned around and looked at Zi Sheching with a burning gaze. "Why are you looking at me?" Zi Sheching asked strangely. Chu Yang hesitated for a while and suddenly asked on a whim, "Miss Zi, with your cultivation, I'm afraid you're already invincible in this world. May I ask, if you were to compare with the person who distorted the heavens back then, who would win?" Zi Sheching said amusedly, "If I'm a sparrow, then he's a great rock flying above the heavens. What's there to compare?" Chu Yang took a breath and let out a long breath. He muttered, "This world is so big." Wei Wuyan couldn't help but be speechless. With Zi Sheching's cultivation, she actually compared herself to a sparrow while comparing the other party to a great rock. Both Wei Wuyan and Chu Yang were silent, but their hearts were different. Wei Wuyan's heart was very calm. He had already accepted this fact. That person was a god, who could fold the heavens with one hand. Such a person only existed in legends. But Chu Yang's heart was like a pot of boiling water, suddenly boiling at this moment. In his heart, an idea suddenly popped up. If I want to save the lives of my brothers, if I don't want my brothers to sacrifice themselves, then I must reach the level of the person who folded the heavens back then. Only when my strength reaches that level, then I can say that I can save people or subvert. Subvert, not subvert the heavens, but subvert this world. Or use my own strength to add another layer of seal to this continent. A layer of seal that no longer needed and would never need the catastrophe sword. To achieve that goal, at this moment, it was no different from a fool's dream. But Chu Yang had set such a goal in his heart at this moment. I want to fold the heavens. Chu Yang said in a low voice. I also want to reach the level of folding the heavens. Only then can I live my life without regrets. Although Chu Yang's voice was low, it was full of determination and unwavering determination. He said this sentence word by word, but it was as if he was being hammered by the hammer of heaven and earth. Every word fell heavily onto the ground, turning into an imprint on his soul that would never disappear. Wei Wuyan looked at him in shock. His heart almost jumped out of his throat because of what he said. Zi Xiecheng looked up at Chu Yang with a very solemn and serious gaze for the first time. She said, folding the heavens is not a skill. If one can create a heavens from nothing, then that's a great way. Creating a heavens? Chu Yang muttered to himself. Wei Wuyan was shocked speechless by what these two daring guys said. He opened his mouth and looked at the two of them, as if he had seen ghosts. Black Blood Forest was silent. For a moment, the three of them were silent. After a long time, Chu Yang finally heaved a sigh of relief and broke this indescribable silence. He said, if we go out of Black Blood Forest from here, we will have to face the Lan clan, Zhuge clan and Yi clan, right? Wei Wuyan said, yes, if we go out from here, we will be in the bordering area of the three big clans. Chu Yang nodded lightly and suddenly asked, Brother Wei, there's something that I still don't understand. Wei Wuyan said, what is it? It's the ballad of the big clans of the heavens, Chu Yang said, a piece of land in the east, a flute in the southeast, and thousands of miles of waves in the west. It's the clans, Shao clan and Qin clan. And it's the sky-shocking stone in the northwest, the pride of the Ling clan in the southwest, and the fragrance of celestial orchids in the south. It's the Shi clan, Ling clan and Lan clan. The swords and sabers of the north are sharp, while the Zhuge clan of the south are mighty. Only the Li clan, the Zhuge clan, and the Yi clan, are they not? It's completely correct. Wei Wuyan was confused. What's the problem? Don't you think it's repetitive? Chu Yang asked in surprise. Look, the fragrance of celestial orchids in the south, and Zhuge clan and Yi clan, are all in the south. And the southeast and southwest are already there. There are two big clans in the south, but there's none in the northeast. So it's about this. Wei Wuyan smiled. The south is very big. Compared to the north, the south is vast and the climate is warm and comfortable. Also, because there are more wise people in the Zhuge clan, this is the feng shui that they chose. As for the Lan clan, it's because the 7 stars immortal orchid needed by the clan's martial arts must grow in the south. Therefore, it's not strange for them to share the south with the Zhuge clan. He paused for a while and said, as for the northeast, that's the base camp of the 3 stars divine clan. The divine clans appear in the northeast. Normally, no one dares to go in. And the headquarters of the law enforcement officers is also located in the northeast. That's equivalent to the territory of the law enforcement officers. So, although there's the 3 stars divine clan in the northeast, it's the most stable place in the entire upper 3 heavens. I see, Chu Yang nodded and said, then, how far is it from here to the wind thunder platform in the northwest? One can enter and exit the one-line heavens through the wind and thunder? Wei Wuyan looked at Chu Yang. How do you know that dangerous place? Then he frowned and said, it's extremely dangerous there. Moreover, the climate is completely different from here. Also, the journey is extremely long. I've never been there in my life. If I calculate the distance, it should be 5,000 miles. 5,000 miles? Chu Yang exclaimed, Why did I hear that it's only 37,000 miles from the southeast to the northwest? And we've already walked more than 5,000 miles. Wei Wuyan smiled. The journey is indeed 37,000 miles. This is not wrong at all. But that's under the condition that we don't take a detour. But if you don't take a detour, how can you reach the northwest? Chu Yang was disappointed and said, so 37,000 miles is just a straight line distance? Wei Wuyan laughed. That's right. As he said, he couldn't help but laugh. Shaking his head, he said, 37,000 miles. This is really the calculation of life. Chu Yang lowered his head dejectedly. Damn, it's still so far. My fifth fragment of the tribulation sword. Let's speed up, Zi Xieching urged. The four of them sped up at the same time. After walking for another 200 miles, Chu Yang and Wei Wuyan simultaneously felt that their bodies were lighter. The ability to control their divine senses had returned. It seemed that from here onwards, they were out of the restrictions of the Black Blood Forest. Just when they were about to reach the small mountain that Wei Wuyan had pointed out, Zi Xieching suddenly frowned and waved her hands. Everyone stopped and looked at her in confusion. Wei Wuyan, the place where your teacher lives. There are so many experts now? Zi Xieching frowned and asked. Chapter 9:15. Many experts? Can't be. I've deliberately found the most secluded place for my teacher's residence. When I enter and exit the Black Blood Forest, I also take a detour and don't dare to reveal any traces. Why are there so many people? Wei Wuyan said in surprise. There are many experts. 7 or 8 of them are not below you, and 3 or 4 of them are far above you. Zi Xieching frowned as she listened. She said lightly, and their murderous intents are very strong. Strong murderous intents? Wei Wuyan's face changed. Not good. Could it be that they've chased after us? The law enforcement interrogation hall? Chu Yang asked. Wei Wuyan was very anxious. He was about to rush over. Chu Yang said calmly, Brother Wei, let's make a good plan first. You can also tell us the cause and effect of this matter, so that we can have a good idea. Wei Wuyan said, Okay, let's talk as we walk. Chu Yang nodded silently and sped up. The law enforcement interrogation hall was the most powerful hall in the law enforcement circle, apart from the elders and the elders. There were as many experts as there were clouds inside. My teacher's name is Hong Wuliang, and he has the honorific title of Supreme Icy Snow. 1,000 years ago, he was also an all-powerful figure. And the law enforcement master of the interrogation hall is called Lang Ilang, and he has the nickname of Raging Waves. This person is actually from the same hometown as my teacher. Back then, the two of them had a very good relationship. When they were young, they had once roamed the martial world together. Wei Wuyan explained the ins and outs of the matter as they hurried on. Later on, my teacher and Lang Ilang met a girl who was being chased by bandits at the same time. The two of them acted together and saved the girl. The girl was very beautiful, and my teacher and Lang Ilang took a fancy to her at the same time. Needless to say, the two of them had turned against each other because of this girl. Chu Yang looked up and sighed. Femme fatale? Femme fatale? As he said, he couldn't help but glance at Zi Xieching. He empathized with Wei Wuyan's teacher. Zi Xieching was expressionless. She glanced at him and said in a voice that only the two of them could hear, After settling the matter of Wei Wuyan's master, you need to improve your cultivation. Chu Yang was on the verge of tears. He wished he could slap his own mouth a few times. I told you not to talk nonsense. Don't talk nonsense. You fucking talked nonsense again? A woman can't marry 2 husbands. In the end, that woman still chose my master and became my master's wife. As Wei Wuyan ran, his words were still clear and logical. Lang Ilang left heartbroken. If that's all, then it's nothing much. Although Lang Ilang was sad, he didn't do anything despicable. Wei Wuyan let out a wry laugh. I hate Lang Ilang to the core, but when it comes to this matter, I'm not willing to deliberately smear his name. Although Lang Ilang is a little biased, he's still considered a sexual lover. Chu Yang nodded, understood. After a few decades, my master's wife suddenly contracted a strange illness. It was a terminal illness of the bloodline. My master sought treatment from many places, but in the end, she couldn't be saved and died in my master's arms. Wei Wuyan's voice became low and deep. At that time, Lang Yilong was already a low-level law enforcement officer. When he received the news, he rushed over from afar to offer his condolences. In the morning hall, he was emotional and heartbroken. He vomited blood and fainted on the spot. After he woke up, he fell out with my master and blamed him for not taking good care of the person he loved. My master tried to explain, but he just wouldn't listen. Everyone's persuasion was useless. He cut ties with my master on the spot and fought with him. Everyone was there at that time. Lang Yilong didn't succeed and was injured by one of my master's brothers. Before he left, he cut off his finger and swore to the heavens that he would fight my master to the death for the rest of his life. He swore that he would make my master suffer the cruelest torture in the world until he died. When Wei Wuyan said this, both Chu Yang and Zi Xiecheng sighed deeply. The two of them really didn't have much to say about such matters. This Lang Yilong could be considered a sentimental person. When the person he loved didn't choose him, he left heartbroken. When he returned, she was already gone. After several decades, he was actually still heartbroken and vomited blood and fainted on the spot. This showed how deep his love was. He had never married in his entire life. This also showed that he had used up all the feelings he had in his life to fall in love with her back then. It was just that even though his infatuation was pitiable, his actions were detestable. No matter what, that woman was already married and was someone else's wife. Moreover, she had died because of an incurable disease and not because she had been abused by her husband's family. It was very wrong of Lang Yilong to make such a fuss. That Hong Wuliang was really tragic enough. He was already heartbroken over the death of his beloved wife. Yet an old rival in love popped up to denounce him. And he even got into a fight in the morning hall. It really wasn't easy for him to hold himself back. Chu Yang thought to himself, actually, there's only one thing to say, regardless of whether she's the person you love, she's still my wife. What right do you have to ask me about this? What status do you have to ask me about this? But that Hong Wuliang probably didn't have the guts to say this, right? After losing his beloved wife, my master devoted himself to martial arts and reached the martial saint level within a few hundred years. Lang Yilong, on the other hand, was determined to take revenge, and his cultivation also improved by leaps and bounds. Wei Wuyan said, whenever the two of them met, it would be a battle of life and death. My master's cultivation was higher than Lang Yilong's, so he showed mercy every time and didn't kill him. But not only did Lang Yilong not appreciate my master's painstaking efforts, he even became more and more aggressive. He actually remembered all the people who had fought with him among those who went to offer their condolences back then. In the future, he used all kinds of means to take revenge, either by framing others or making use of his rights as a law enforcement officer to arrest them one by one and persecute them to death. That's not right at all. Chu Yang and Zi Xiecheng said at the same time, even if there's a grudge between them, even if he's sad and indignant, there's no need to lay his hands on innocent people. That's right. Wei Wuyan said, it's also precisely because of this that my master and Lang Yilong truly became mortal enemies. So much so that my master even took the initiative to travel all over the world to look for Lang Yilong and seek justice for his dead brothers. But Lang Yilong disappeared without a trace from then on and disappeared from this world. When he reappeared several hundred years later, Lang Yilong had already become a warden of the law enforcement interrogation hall. The two of them fought several battles. Lang Yilong had many henchmen and my master was no match for him, so he could only look for opportunities. Several hundred years passed again and my master became a supreme martial artist. Then, he wanted to look for Lang Yilong to settle scores. But at that time, Lang Yilong took the initiative to issue a challenge and invited my master to a fair battle. When Wei Wuyan reached this point, Chu Yang and Zi Xiecheng already understood everything. They couldn't help but sigh deeply in their hearts. Just because of the affection back then, the two of them were entangled with each other for their entire lives. Although it could be said that they became two supreme martial artists because of this, The two of them still fought to the death over this matter even after they became supreme martial artists. It could be seen that the affection back then was deeply engraved in their hearts. My master went alone. The two of them had a drink first as a parting of life and death. Then, the two of them had a great battle on the mountain. But at the critical moment, when my master and Lang Yilong exchanged injuries, each of them struck the other with a palm. It was only then that my master realized that Lang Yilong's arm had turned into the color of an entire purple crystal jade core. What he was using at this moment was actually the purple crystal hand. The purple crystal hand can cause one to go bankrupt. Wei Wuyan said, "My master's mind was in a mess and he wanted to escape." But Lang Yilong pursued him all the way. He didn't hesitate to exchange injuries for injuries and struck my master 3 more times. My master fled back with serious injuries and immediately took me to a place to live in seclusion. Only a few days later, the place where we originally lived was already reduced to ashes. All these years, the illness of my master's purple crystal hand became more and more serious. Since 100 years ago, his purple crystals had already been depleted. I roamed the martial world alone, desperately earning purple crystals to extend my master's life. Until today. When Wei Wuyan finished, he heaved a long sigh. With the purple crystal hand, one's path could never be cut off. If the supply of purple crystals was cut off one day, from the next day onwards, the number of purple crystals needed would double. And so on and so forth, all these years, for the sake of his master's injuries, this Wuyan expert who had never begged anyone in his life had really been driven to a corner. Ordinary people could still rest and recuperate after completing a mission and find other ways to enjoy and relax. But no matter how difficult a mission Wei Wuyan had completed, the next one was already in his hands. He didn't dare to stop for even a moment. He was afraid that one day his master's purple crystals would be cut off and he wouldn't be able to continue anymore. "It's indeed not easy," Zi Xiecheng chuckled. Zi Xiecheng chuckled. Then her face turned cold. Her slender eyebrows furrowed slightly, revealing boundless murderous intent. "But this matter really deserves to be killed. Both of them deserve to be killed." Both of them deserve to be killed? Wei Wuyan was stunned. Even Chu Yang was a little puzzled. Lang Yilong deserves to be killed. It's one thing for him to like a woman, but this woman is already married. Even if he can't let go of her, he should at least hide it in his heart. To make a scene in the morning hall of another person's wife, saying that the other person didn't take good care of his beloved. It's simply laughable and despicable. Just this alone is enough to warrant the death penalty. Because he caused a dead person's reputation to be tarnished because of him. Not to mention that he did so many other wrong things after that. Even death can't wipe out his crimes. Zi Xiecheng said coldly and sternly, "Perhaps you men will think that this is a kind of deep affection that is worthy of praise. But let me tell you, in a woman's heart, this kind of infatuation is even more unbearable than that of an enemy who has committed heinous crimes. Because this kind of deep affection will destroy her peaceful and happy life at any time. And what is the most important thing for a woman? Once she is married, the most important things are her family, husband, and children. Lang Yilong's deep affection can easily take away all these from a woman's life. No matter how loyal a woman is, as long as her husband has the slightest bit of suspicion, then there will never be a day of peace and it will all end in tragedy. To be deeply in love with a woman whom you like and who also likes you is a virtue. But to be deeply in love with a woman whom you like but who doesn't like you is torture and destruction. This kind of man deserves to be killed even more than a perverted thief." The murderous intent in Zi Xiecheng's eyes was overwhelming. Chapter 916. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Chu Yang and Wei Wuyan were stunned at the same time. Net of nets. Indeed, the two of them considered the problem from a man's point of view. They indeed felt that although Lang Yilong had committed heinous crimes, he was deeply affectionate and well-intentioned. He was really a pitiful person in love. Indeed, a hateful person would definitely have a pitiful side. However, they didn't expect that coming from a woman's mouth, it would become a heinous crime. Chu Yang thought deeply for a while and finally said, "That's right. This is very reasonable." He let out a long sigh and said, "When we men talk about love, we usually stand on the man's side. Sometimes, it's inevitable that we'll be one-sided. Love is always two-sided. If we don't care about the woman's feelings, I believe that we won't be a good husband." When he said this, Chu Yang was thinking about Emo Qinggu. He thought, what is Qinggu like? If Qinggu becomes my wife, then what should I do? Wei Wuyan nodded. At first, Zi Xiecheng's words seemed a little extreme. However, after thinking about it carefully, he knew that what she said actually made a lot of sense. For a woman, a man's deep and unforgettable love for a woman was undoubtedly the highest affirmation of herself. Therefore, before marriage, a woman would really enjoy such deep feelings. However, after the other party married someone else, if such deep feelings still existed, it would become a nightmare that the woman couldn't get rid of. She would be constantly on tenterhooks about whether the other party would suddenly appear in front of her and her husband. Since a woman had decided to marry a man, she had already decided where she would belong for the rest of her life. Therefore, she would care a lot about her marriage and her life. If someone wanted to destroy her marriage, in her heart, no matter how good this person had been to her in the past, at this moment, he would be an abominable enemy. Because as long as it was a woman, she would know that a husband's suspicion could easily destroy a marriage that could have lasted forever. Net of nets, just as men knew that a woman's jealousy was unreasonable, similarly, a man's suspicion was also absolutely unreasonable. A woman's jealousy could be resolved, but once a man's suspicion arose, there would never be a time when it would disappear, until the death of the marriage. A man could endure the humiliation of being groomed, but he would never endure being cuckolded. Therefore, if you love a woman and she already has a home, then it's best not to date her with the idea of not being lovers, but being friends, because she's no longer alone. Beside her, there is always a pair of eyes, watching her and you vigilantly, even if he was full of smiles. But sometimes, a careless look or action from you can bring endless grievances and mental pain to the person you love. Put yourself in someone else's shoes. If your wife and her ex-lover were to chat and laugh together, you wouldn't feel comfortable either. So if you truly love me, please let me go. After that, her emotions and sorrows will have nothing to do with you. It might seem cold and emotionless, but it was the highest level of love. Lang Yilang should be killed. However, Hong Wuliang deserves to be killed even more. Zi Xiecheng said coldly. He clearly knew that Lang Yilang was such a person, yet he showed mercy and didn't kill him. It was only when Lang Yilang killed all of his friends and brothers that he started to take action. A man like him doesn't deserve to be called a man. Firstly, in front of his wife's coffin, he actually allowed Lang Yilang to claim that his wife was Lang Yilang's most beloved person. This is equivalent to allowing him to slander his wife's reputation. And he even explained it to him. That's one sin. Secondly, when Lang Yilang challenged him to a duel, he was indirectly slandering his deceased wife for the second time, yet he still let him go. That's two sins. Thirdly, his friends died because of him. He was the one who caused the deaths of his friends and brothers, and not Lang Yilang. That's three sins. Fourthly, for so many years he enjoyed his disciples' offerings with a clear conscience, completely ignoring the fact that his purple crystal hand had already destroyed his disciples' life. His selfishness is so infuriating. That's 4 sins. The combined punishment of 4 sins is a capital offense that deserves to be hacked into pieces. Zi Xiecheng said coldly, a man like this is unfaithful to his wife, unfaithful to his friends, and unloving to his brothers. He's overcautious and indecisive. Living is disgusting. He might as well die early and reincarnate earlier so that fewer people will die because of him. Wei Wuyan was furious. How dare you say that about my master? Zi Xiecheng said dispassionately, your master? The moment I see him, I'll kill him with my own hands. Your master? Marrying your master's wife is actually not as blissful as marrying Lang Yilang back then. Because Lang Yilang took the initiative to bear everything for her, while your master was passive. Although Lang Yilang isn't a good person, he more or less has some sense of responsibility as a man. As for your master, he's no longer worthy of being called a man. Wei Wuyan said coldly, since that's the case, I won't trouble you anymore. He turned and hurried away. He had originally wanted to make use of Zi Sheqing's terrifying cultivation to kill the enemy. However, Zi Sheqing's words had crossed Wei Wuyan's bottom line. From the perspective of a bystander, how could Wei Wuyan not know that although Zi Sheqing's words were extreme, they were indeed the truth? Moreover, his master's indecisiveness had persisted for his entire life. But facts were facts. He couldn't admit it. Because the person Zi Sheqing was scolding was his master. The person who had raised him up and nurtured him into a talent. Even if he was really guilty, he shouldn't say it himself. Moreover, his master had always been a passive recipient and victim in this matter. Therefore, Wei Wuyan resolutely gave up on seeking help and went to save his master alone. In order to avoid making things difficult for Chu Yang, he didn't say goodbye to Chu Yang when he left. What you said is the truth and reasonable, but you're too direct. Chu Yang walked over and complained. You mean you're on Wei Wuyan's side? Zi Sheqing turned to look at Chu Yang, her gaze deep and serene. Yes. Chu Yang nodded without hesitation. Even if what you said is reasonable, but there's one thing you can't change. That's his master. In other words, if the person you're looking for had made such a mistake and others were scolding him in front of you, what would you do? Zi Sheqing's gaze turned cold. No one can scold him in front of me. Chu Yang said coldly, but you scolded Wei Wuyan's master in front of him. Put yourself in his shoes, what would you do? Wei Wuyan is already very polite to you. Zi Sheqing's gaze froze. You're criticizing me? Why can't I? Chu Yang sneered. Is it because your cultivation is high that no one has criticized you before? Should everyone be afraid of you and coax you? If that's the case, then you've misjudged me. I've tolerated you along the way only because you're a woman and I'm a man. That's all. If you think that I'm afraid of you, I'll look down on your IQ. What an unyielding man. Zi Sheqing said, not knowing whether she was praising or belittling him. Then, her voice suddenly softened and she said softly, I know that you men have your self-esteem, but women also have their own pursuits and bottom lines. A man's bottom line is whether a woman is loyal, but a woman's bottom line is whether a man is responsible. A man like Wei Wuyan's master is an irresponsible man. Even if his martial arts are high, he's still not a good match for a woman. I've been to countless plains, and in most of them, men are superior to women. It's normal for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. I admit this, but even if some men have 3 wives and 4 concubines, each of his wives and concubines loves him to the core. Because this man is worthy of their love. And some men can only marry 1 wife in their lifetime, but his wife will make him a cuckold. Because this man is not worthy of his wife's loyalty. Zi Sheqing said lightly, every woman is willing to be faithful to her husband until they grow old. No woman is born a slut. Do you understand this, Chu Yang? I understand, but it doesn't mean that I agree. Chu Yang said angrily, if you want to apologize, say it properly. Don't use such a condescending tone. Do others owe you anything? Zi Sheqing chuckled and said indifferently, what I said just now hurt Wei Wuyan's self-esteem. I will apologize to him for this later. Right is right, wrong is wrong. No matter how high my cultivation is, I've never denied doing something wrong. But I apologize to Wei Wuyan because I shouldn't have scolded his master in front of him, not because I scolded him wrongly. When I see his master, I'll still scold him to his face. I need to make this clear in advance. Chu Yang was speechless. Facing such a stubborn person, he really couldn't do anything about it. Let's go. Otherwise, Wei Wuyan will lose his life, Zi Sheqing said lightly. Then she laughed and said, actually, if I don't send Wei Wuyan away alone, how can you go up and risk your life to enter the Tao state? She smiled and led the way. At this time, you still haven't forgotten about that. Chu Yang was speechless and followed closely. After walking for less than 10 feet, Zi Sheqing suddenly turned her head and revealed a strange smile. What? Chu Yang asked vigilantly. You have to remember what I said just now. Zi Sheqing smiled and said, "What?" Chu Yang was alarmed. "You have to think carefully about what you can do to deserve a woman's love." Zi Sheqing laughed and said, "Otherwise, if one of your future wives cheats on you, don't blame me for not reminding you." Chu Yang was fuming with anger and said without thinking, "If I have a wife who cheats on me in the future, the one who cheats on me will definitely be you." Zi Sheqing's face turned red and then cold. Then she said coldly, "Chu Yang, you're so bold. You actually dare to tease me?" Chu Yang said angrily, "Are you the only one who's allowed to tease me?" Zi Sheqing nodded slowly and said, "You wait." Then she turned and left. Chu Yang followed her and thought, "Damn it, with your behavior, not to mention whether I'll be cheated on, even if you give yourself to me, I won't dare to accept it. Damn it. Who the hell can take it? Besides, she's a woman who has lived for hundreds of thousands of years. She's a peerless old woman." Chu Yang looked at the slim figure in front of him and thought, "Although I won't accept it even if you give yourself to me, I have to admit that this peerless old woman is also a peerless beautiful old woman." Chapter 9:17. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Zi Sheqing carried Chu Lu on her back and sped along with Chu Yang. The speed of the two was so fast that it didn't take long for them to reach the foot of the mountain that Wei Wuyan named Little Green Mountain. Net, Chu Yang released his divine senses and couldn't help but be shocked. There were at least 30 to 40 experts searching around this Little Green Mountain. But from the looks of it, they hadn't found Wei Wuyan's master, Hong Wuliang. If they had found him, these people would have retreated long ago. Wei Wuyan went to the southwest direction. His movements are very careful. Zi Sheqing frowned and listened for a while. Then, she said, "It seems that his master has been placed in the southwest direction." Chu Yang nodded. "Since he's living in seclusion and doesn't want others to know, then even if he's in the mountains he won't build any houses. That's too eye-catching. So, Wei Wuyan and his master must be living in a very secretive cave. Let's go over." Zi Sheqing smiled. "Although I don't like a master like him, since you want to help him, I can only help you." Chu Yang snapped his fingers. "After knowing each other for so long, this sentence of yours makes me feel the most comfortable." Zi Sheqing frowned and looked at him meaningfully. Then she said, "3 times." Chu Yang said calmly, 3. What Zi Sheqing meant was that Chu Yang already owed her 3 times of abuse. At this critical juncture, she would keep it in mind for the time being. Chu Yang wasn't in a hurry. "Anyway, I'm going to improve my strength. You're going to abuse me? You can help me improve, and I can also earn elixirs from you." "Yes, 1 at a time, 3 at a time." "Let's go," said Zi Sheqing. "Okay." Chu Yang was energized. "Let's go over secretly." "Go over secretly?" Zi Sheqing looked at him in surprise. "Why do we have to go over secretly? Fight it out in the open. These people are really not enough for me to blow on." Chu Yang's head was full of sweat. "They are not enough for you to blow on, but you won't do anything. The only one who will do anything is me, the coolie. I'm here, don't be afraid." Zi Sheqing patted her chest, full of confidence. Net. Chu Yang had a bitter look on his face as he followed this big sister out in large strides. She was valiant and spirited. He had only taken about 10 steps when he heard someone say, "Who is it?" Chu Yang swaggered and said, "It's me." A black-clothed man appeared in front of a tree. He suspiciously looked at Chu Yang. "Who are you?" Chu Yang laughed. "I am who I am." The black-clothed man's face darkened. His eyes were filled with mockery and cruelty. "You're you? Who do you think you are?" Chu Yang twisted his neck and said with a smile, "If you're not mistaken, I'm a man." The black-clothed man's face changed, and he said furiously, "Bastard." Chu Lu, who was at the side, couldn't help but giggle. These 3 questions and 3 answers made him not know whether to laugh or cry. This person's question was very regular, but Chu Yang's answer was purely a stroke of genius. The black-robed man looked in the direction of the laughter and saw Zi Sheqing standing beside Chu Lu. Zi Sheqing's clothes were as white as snow, and her hair was like clouds. She just stood there, but it was as if she was standing in the moonlight. This ordinary place was suddenly filled with a celestial aura when she stood there. It made people feel that this was not the human world at all. Instead, it should be a bejeweled jade palace, a sky-high pavilion. No one could describe her beauty, and no one could describe her appearance in detail. In short, she was like a celestial fairy who had suddenly descended to the human world. She stood there quietly, her face cold and indifferent. Naturally, she was filled with an unattainable aura. She was high above, incomparable, holy and noble, and unparalleled in the world. The black-clothed man's face was originally full of anger, but it suddenly changed. His face was still angry, but it froze, and his eyes revealed a look of intoxication. He unconsciously stared at Zi Sheqing, his mouth wide open, and saliva flowed out from the corners of his mouth. Chu Yang sighed in his heart. Damn it, I knew it would be like this. This guy was a martial monarch, and he was at least 100 years old. Seeing a beauty, he actually had such an expression. It could be seen that Zi Sheqing's allure was unimaginable. Templar noticing that the black-robed man was looking at her rudely, Zi Sheqing frowned unhappily. It was just a frown, but it was clear that he was not happy to see her looking at him like that. That was what it meant. The black-clothed man suddenly woke up with a start and let out an "uh." Suddenly, he was at a loss of what to do. His face actually turned red, and his two hands started grabbing and pinching here and there. He actually acted like an innocent young man who suddenly saw his dream lover. Even though Chu Yang was extremely depressed in his heart, he couldn't help but find it a little funny at this moment. Bro, you don't know, right? The woman in front of you is old enough to be your 18 generations of ancestors' great-grandmother. What's your name, miss? The black-clothed man had been silent for a long time, and finally managed to ask such a question. Chu Yang was depressed, but he still wanted to hold his belly and laugh out loud. You're already so old. Don't tell me you still want to pick up girls? Zi Sheqing didn't say anything. She only looked at Chu Yang with her beautiful eyes. The black-clothed man suddenly woke up and turned to look at Chu Yang. The cruelty in his eyes was gone, and it was replaced by envy, jealousy, and hatred. Then, his whole face turned purple, as if he had a feud with Chu Yang for killing his father and stealing his wife. You little bastard! The black-clothed man shouted furiously, Little bastard! You're actually so beautiful. You actually dared to trick me? This is intolerable. Today, I don't care which clan you're from. Since you've offended me, consider yourself unlucky. Chu Yang felt a little dizzy. How could he not understand that what this bastard really wanted to say was, You actually have such a beautiful wife. This is intolerable. But when the words reached his mouth, he changed his mind. Even if I have such a beautiful wife, it has nothing to do with you, right? Chu Yang looked at this impulsive old man with interest. What do you want? Only then did he suddenly realize that there was a lifelike orchid embroidered on the collar and cuffs of this black-clothed man. Someone from the Lan clan? Chu Yang was stunned. Isn't this the law enforcement interrogation hall? Why is he from the Lan clan? The black-clothed man said furiously, What do I want? If you kneel down obediently now and cow to me 3 times, I'll let you off. He said 2 sentences consecutively and suddenly said with a red face, Let your woman apologize to me again and I'll spare your life. Towards the end, not only did he muster up the courage to say his true intentions, he even changed the way he addressed himself as old man to old man. Presumably, this martial monarch must have suddenly remembered that old man was not suitable for beautiful woman. Old man was more like it. Chu Yang looked at him worriedly. Even if you're blinded by beauty, you should be able to tell that the person standing in front of you is also a martial monarch who's not inferior to you, right? How could you say such brainless words? Little one, are you willing to listen to old man's judgment? The black-clothed man shouted angrily as he stole glances at Zi Sheqing. Looking at her, he didn't care whether she was a martial monarch or a supreme martial artist. He was already distracted. Chu Yang sighed. I'm not willing. You're willing? That's good. What? You're saying that you're not willing? The black-clothed man was furious. "You're asking for trouble." He actually rushed over in large strides with an aggressive aura. He actually wanted to fight. Chu Yang sighed gloomily and raised his right hand. With a clang, before Chu Yang's sword was out, the scabbard on the black-clothed man's waist suddenly shook violently. A shining long sword automatically came out of the scabbard and stood upright in the wind, shining with a cold light. The black-clothed man exclaimed, "Sword sovereign?" He suddenly stopped and felt that something wasn't right. He looked at Chu Yang carefully and his face finally darkened. "Sword sovereign? You're awake." Chu Yang looked at him with a half-smile. The black-clothed man took 2 steps back and looked a little conflicted. He knew clearly that he couldn't defeat a sword sovereign. Even if the other party was only a first-grade sword sovereign, with his strength, he might not be able to defeat him. But if he called for help, this peerless beauty, he wouldn't have a share. Especially that perverted 7th young master. He looked at Zi Sheqing reluctantly and sighed dejectedly. Suddenly, he looked up to the sky and let out a long howl. His voice carried a few strange syllables, which floated up into the sky. After all, his life was more important. Not long after he let out the howl, a gust of wind blew over. More than 10 people came from all directions. A calm and gloomy voice said, "What's the matter?" Then, there was a sudden sound as if they were stunned. Then, there were many similar sounds. Obviously, these people were all stunned by Zi Sheqing's beauty when they saw her. Chu Yang looked over and saw 3 people on the left, 3 on the right, 3 behind him and 2 in front of him. Including the black-clothed man, there were exactly 12 people. Among them were martial monarchs. There were 4 people whose cultivation levels couldn't be determined. They must be martial saints. A young duke in a long brocade robe, holding a folding fan, stood tall and straight. He looked elegant and graceful. Beside this young duke, there was a man in his 30s. Just by standing there casually, he was already as unshakable as a high mountain. These people all had one thing in common. That was, there was a lifelike orchid embroidered on their collars and sleeves. Everyone looked at Zi Sheqing, unable to take their eyes off her. Ever since the young duke arrived, his peach blossom-like eyes were fixed on Zi Sheqing. The more he looked at her, the more passionate his gaze became. Suddenly he laughed loudly. "Gu Mu, you've done a great service for me this time. Pa, when I go back this time, I'll reward you handsomely." The black-clothed man's mouth twitched and he said, "Thank you, young master." That young man couldn't be bothered with him. He already walked towards Zi Sheqing impatiently. "Miss, I'm Lan Ruiyun from the Lan clan. May I know how to address you?" He only had eyes for this otherworldly beauty. He didn't even look at Chu Yang from the corner of his eyes. Chapter 9:18. Zi Sheqing said coldly, "What does it have to do with you how I address you?" As she said, she pulled Chu and walked behind Chu Yang. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that she had come to seek protection from a man after seeing that the other party was outnumbered. Chu Yang instantly rolled his eyes. Lan Ruiyun was obviously a member of the Lan clan, and from the looks of it, he was a male cousin of the Lan clan. Just one look at his expression and one could tell that this guy was a lecher. When such a person saw a beauty like Zi Sheqing, he was simply like a fly that saw honey. He would rather be smashed into pieces than to get close to her. Zi Sheqing was as cold as ice and frost. Her cold temperament that kept people 1,000 miles away made Lan Ruiyun even happier and more interested. It seemed that all men had a common problem. The more difficult it was to conquer a woman, the greater the sense of accomplishment. This was a common problem for all men, and this Duke Lan was no exception. Out of the 12 people from the Lan clan, 11 of them were already dazzled. Only the man in his 30s standing beside Lan Ruiyun felt slightly uneasy. He also felt strange in his heart. There were only 1 man and 2 women in front of him, and only this man had some ability, but he was only a monarch-level martial artist. As for the 2 women, one was a little girl, and the other woman looked like she was only a zone-level martial artist. They were even weaker. But why did he have a feeling that a disaster was about to befall him? With his cultivation as a first-grade supreme martial artist, he shouldn't have such a feeling. Seventh young master, in my opinion, it's better not to complicate matters. We'd better complete the law enforcement master's task as soon as possible and return to report. If the Yi clan and Zhuge clan are ahead of us, it'll be a great loss of face for the Lan clan. After pondering for a while, he finally trusted his intuition. Because his intuition had never lied to him. Lan Ruoyun waved his folding fan and looked at Zi Sheqing smilingly. As for Chu Yang, he was directly ignored by him. He said casually, "Grand Uncle Han, that matter isn't urgent. They haven't found it after searching for a few days. I don't believe that they will find it at this moment. Besides, the matter here is also very important." That Grand Uncle Han sighed and thought, "What's so important about the matter here? It's just that you've belittled his wife." On the other side, Chu Yang thought to himself, so it wasn't the law enforcement officers who came out this time? Instead, it was that Lang Yilong who had mobilized the 3 super clans and gotten them to do the dirty work for him? If that was the case, would there still be people from the Yi clan and the Zhuge clan here? He wondered, who were the representatives of those 2 families? "Little miss, you haven't heard of me, Lan Ruoyun, right?" Lan Ruoyun smiled and said proudly, "Then you should have heard of Lan clan, right? As for the little girl beside you." He pointed at Chu Yang with his folding fan and said disdainfully, "Who does he think he is? Miss, if you follow me, I guarantee that you'll live a carefree and happy life. It's better than following this little 4Cs and suffering all kinds of hardships." Zi Sheqing said coldly, "My fiancé is highly skilled in martial arts and is the #1 among the younger generation. He is said to be invincible among experts of the same level. He is a great man with an indomitable spirit. You are just a young man from an aristocratic family. How can you be better than my fiancé?" "Fiancé? Just fiancé?" Lan Ruoyun's eyes lit up instantly. "Ha! Just fiancé is great." He tilted his head and said to Chu Yang, "Little girl, I'm not going to play games with you. In short, such a beauty is not someone you can handle. Get lost obediently. If I'm in a good mood, I'll spare your life." Seeing that he was surrounded by his own people, this young master actually tore off all his pretense and put on a posture of snatching. It was obvious that this young master wanted to snatch a girl by force. Chu Yang said coldly, "Whether she can handle it or not, still depends on the real skills." He was really not interested in talking to this bunch of lechers now. He might as well cut the Gordian knot. "Let's fight." "You actually want to fight?" Lan Ruoyun laughed out loud, as if he had heard a great joke. He tilted his head and said lightly, "Who wants to fight with this invincible expert of the same level?" A man in his 40s stepped forward and said calmly, "Master Qigong, this young man's cultivation is not bad. Ordinary monarchs may not be able to take him down. Let me fight him." Lan Ruoyun grinned, revealing a cruel arc. He said in a low voice, "Kill." This man nodded heavily. He turned over and faced Chu Yang. He said lightly, "Young man, what's your name? Which clan are you from?" Chu Yang said coldly, "If I tell you which clan I'm from, will you not snatch my wife? What's the use of telling you?" The man's eyes didn't move. He said, "If you tell me now, there's still room for negotiation if we have a relationship. If you don't blame me for being merciless." Chu Yang laughed. "Then be merciless." The man's eyes flickered. He said lightly, "Good. Suddenly, with a clang, he unsheathed his sword and pointed the tip of the sword forward. He said, "I'm Guan Gu, the leader of the guards of the Lan clan. Don't forget my name on the road to the netherworld. Junior, you must remember, don't find a wife that's too beautiful. That's not a blessing in love, but a disaster." Chu Yang laughed mockingly. A small leader of the guards actually dares to call himself Ith. Guan Gu was furious. He leaped forward. Chu Yang didn't dare to be negligent. His eyes were cold and fierce. He shook his arms. She said to Chu Yang via voice transmission, "Wei Wuyan has already found his teacher, but those people haven't found them yet. Don't worry and fight. Once there's a situation over there, I'll deal with it immediately. Don't worry, with me watching over them, they'll be fine. Chu Yang nodded and said via voice transmission, then you have to be careful. Zi Xiecheng revealed a confident smile. I don't want anyone to die. In this world, no one can kill under my watch. Very good, then I'll kill all these people first. Chu Yang snorted. It was one thing for a woman to be beautiful, and another thing for a man to appreciate a woman's beauty. But this kind of man who wanted to snatch other people's beautiful wives, no matter in his previous life or this life, Chu Yang would kill anyone he saw. After Lan Ruoyun said those words, even if it wasn't for the Tao state and cultivation, Chu Yang would definitely not let Lan Ruoyun off today. Letting such a villain off would really be letting his conscience down. Chu Yang laughed. He straightened his body and unsheathed his sword. At the moment when the sword was unsheathed, except for that person standing beside Lan Ruoyun, the other people's sword sheaths at their waists vibrated violently at the same time and let out a neat sword cry. With a touch of stunning sword light, the sword pierced out like flowing water. Guan Gu's pupils contracted. When Chu Yang's sword pierced over, he clearly felt that there was a sea in front of him. The huge waves of the sea were coming slowly from afar, but with the momentum of wind and thunder. Although it looked gentle, it carried a power that could sweep the world. Zi Xiecheng's eyes lit up. Chu Yang's soft water sword intent was already infinitely close to great success. His first move already carried the soft water sword intent. Chu Yang's eyes were calm and his face was calm. He silently recited a sentence in his heart. When your fighting spirit is as high as boiling and your vital energy and blood are as calm as ice and snow, then you'll be invincible in the world. Guan Gu's eyes turned cold and his sword went up to meet Chu Yang's attack. Chu Yang's sword was as soft as spring water and looked slow and sluggish, but Guan Gu's sword was as fast as lightning. Both of them drew their swords at the same time, but right in between them, when both of their arms were about to straighten, the two swords clashed. The onlookers weren't mediocre. At this moment, all of them could tell. The two swords that looked fast and slow were actually equally fast. When the two swords clashed, they actually stagnated for a while and strangely didn't make any sound at all. The next moment, with a flash of Chu Yang's black clothes, the soft water sword intent suddenly erupted and turned into raging waves. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.